Hello, hello. So those who are joining online mode, am I audible? Hello, Bhavani. Am I audible? Please leave a message. Yes. Okay. Right. So welcome to Paritranaya. This is day 8, right? So in the previous class we concluded with the discussion of Parliament. Entire Parliament we have concluded, right? Okay. So before beginning the next topic, let's have a quick recall. Okay. What do we understand by Parliament? Parliament consists of Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha. Which one is a permanent house? Raj Sabha. So how many members retire after how many years? After every 2 years. Okay. Next, who is responsible to whom? Executive is responsible to legislature or legislature is responsible to executive? Okay. How does legislature hold executive accountable? Which are the various tools used? Question hour, 0 hour, different types of motions. For example, no confidence motion. Okay. So now budget anta ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ, so generally budget ಯಾವ ಎಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷದ information include ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ budget ಅಲ್ಲಿ? 3 years. Okay. Which all years? Upcoming year, previous year and current year. Okay. And current year. Next, last we discuss ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ನಾವು parliamentary privileges ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. We discussed about the parliamentary privileges. So parliamentary privileges ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತಾ? It extends to Lok Sabha members? Yes or no? Parliamentary privileges. Raj Sabha members? Yes. How about president? It does not extend to president. Okay. ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದೀವಿ. So with finally parliamentary privileges, we discussed 2 different types of privileges. One is collective privilege, another one is individual privilege. Okay. ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ಕನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. Okay. So next we'll start with preamble. Okay, with preamble. So ಈ class exclusive we'll discuss in English. Okay. We'll discuss exclusively in English, and if there are any doubts, again, if you want it to be in Kannada, so we have one more recorded video which has been recorded in Uttar Karnataka language in the previous batch. Okay, the same I will be sharing it with you. Okay, because my expectation is that along with Kannada, those who are not well versed with English, so gradually I want you to become perfect in English as well. Okay, you should be able to comprehend the content which is in written form and also in non-verbal form. Okay, so non-verbal form as well as verbal form. Okay, so so let's begin with the new topic, that is preamble. Okay. So before we begin, I think yesterday I had asked you, what I had asked you? You should be able to recall verbatim. Okay, who will give a try? Only one will get an opportunity. Will give a try? Yes, come.
The people of India solemnly resolve to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republic, and secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, and liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constitutional Assembly, which 26th day of the November 1949, we do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Very good. Okay, so this is our preamble. So when we look at the Constitution, in the previous class when we were discussing, we came to know that Constitution consists of multiple articles, approximately around 400 articles. It consists of 12 schedules and 1 preamble. Okay, 1 preamble. So this preamble, it consists of the summary of the entire Constitution. So the entire Constitution has been summarized in the form of a preamble. Okay, preamble. So when we go through the preamble, it means almost we will be touching every part of the Constitution. But we have not yet discussed about every part of the Constitution. Some things we may not understand here, but gradually when we move to those topics, we'll have a clear understanding. Okay, we'll have a clear understanding. Okay, so in the original Constitution, only they have given about what? The preamble, we the people of India. But when it comes to the discussion, So we'll discuss each and every term. What does a term mean? So in the original constitution, they are not given examples. Okay, they are not given what does a term mean. So here we'll be discussing those terms in detail one by one. Okay, one by one. So very important topic from exam point of view. So why I asked you to memorize? Because one is from Prelims point of view, the nature of questions. Now next, when we start discussing questions, you will understand the type of questions which do appear in Prelims. So only if you have that verbatim recall, then itself you will be able to answer such kind of questions. Okay, and also in mains, when you are writing your mains answers, when you are structuring your mains answers, wherever required, you should be able to quote the preamble. Which word is present in preamble? So what does it indicate? So even from the mains point of view also, it will benefit. Hence I asked you to what? Memorize it, and you should be able to recall verbatim as it is. Okay, so definitely it is going to benefit. Similarly, in the forthcoming classes, there are few more things which have to be memorized verbatim. For example, fundamental right article numbers. Okay, we need to know, but not exactly. The content we need not recall exactly, but at least article numbers we have to memorize. So wherever I will emphasize that something has to be memorized, you have to memorize it. Okay, you have to memorize it. Okay. So preamble, some basics. So which was the first country to begin with the preamble? Okay. So whenever we come across any content, we'll try to learn in this perspective. What kind of question can be framed in Prelims? Obviously, the same content will be beneficial from mains point of view as well, but we'll try to understand in the context of what kind of question can be framed in Prelims. So if you look at the first statement, American Constitution, first to begin with preamble. So if at all a question appears, what kind of question they may frame? Which country first began with the preamble? So it's America. They never asked a question, but still we have to prepare. Okay, we have to prepare. So what does it refer? Preamble refers to the introduction or preface to the Constitution. Okay, it gives us an introduction to the Constitution. Okay, introduction to the Constitution, and here the terms which appear, they appear in different parts of the Constitution. Okay, different parts of the Constitution. So all the different parts of the Constitution has been summarized in the form of a preamble. So more or less it is like an index, but not exactly index. So it acts as an index. Okay, index. So there is a personality called as N.A. Palkiwala. Okay, historical personality. He said that he called preamble as the identity card of the Constitution. Right. So different personalities, different organizations, they have identities. Okay. For example, if you consider me, founder of Paritranaya IAS Academy. Now, if I look at your identity, someone is a doctor, someone is an engineer. In that format, in that sense, so what is the identity of the identity card of the Constitution? It is preamble. So who said it? N.A. Palkiwala. Now, when we want to retain the information from Prelims point of view, what kind of question they may frame? Who among the following called preamble as the identity card of the Constitution? They may give multiple options. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, N.A. Palkiwala, okay, Gandhiji, and they may quote some other personality. We should be able to recognize it as N.A. Palkiwala. So just namesake, I am framing such kind of questions. But practically, if you look at the past 30 years, they have never asked such kind of questions. They never asked such kind of questions. But when you are writing mains answers, and something related to preamble, a question appears, you should be able to recall. You should be able to recall that N.A. Palkiwala called the preamble as the identity card of the Constitution. Okay, so definitely these statements will be beneficial from what mains point of view, but when we are comprehending the content, we will take it from what Prelims point of view. Okay, Prelims point of view. So there are some historical things which we are yet to discuss, because we are yet to begin with a topic of modern history. Okay, in modern history we come across many topics. So based on objectives resolution drafted and moved by Pandit Nehru. Okay, drafted and moved by Pandit Nehru. So our Constitution, the writing process is started in 1946. The Constitution writing process, it started in what? 1946. So at that time they brought a resolution. It was called as objectives resolution. So what is that objectives resolution? What all things should be present in our Constitution? What all things should be present in our Constitution? So a list was made. That list we call it as objective resolution. Okay, objective resolution. And here I use the term called as CA. CA means Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly. Yesterday we saw, right? Constituent Assembly. So what is Constituent Assembly? The group of people who wrote Constitution. Constituent Assembly is the group of people who wrote Constitution. So yesterday while discussing Parliament, we came across the concept that presently who enjoys the constituent power? Presently who enjoys the constituent power? President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, or Parliament? Parliament. What do we understand the constituent power? Someone who has the power to amend the constitution. So we call that they have the constituent power. So previously constitution was framed by constituent assembly, but presently we do not have constituent assembly. So that power is being exercised by whom? Parliament. Who has given the power to the Parliament? Constitution. Okay, constitution has given the power to Parliament. Okay, so when constitution was being written, before they started the process, a resolution was moved which is called as objectives resolution. In the objectives resolution, detail information like what all things should be present in constitution, overview was given. Okay, overview was given. So who brought this resolution? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Again, we will be discussing about this in detail when we start discussing about the historical background of the constitution and making of the constitution. Here, at a superficial level, we shall understand that who moved the objectives resolution? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay. So our preamble is based on what? Option number 1, objectives resolution. Option number 2, fundamental option number 2, civil disobedience movement. If I frame such kind of options, we should be able to identify. Our preamble is based on what? Objectives resolution moved by whom? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay. So this should be the clarity. So this objectives resolution was adopted by Constituent Assembly. Okay. At that time, the Constituent Assembly it said okay with the objectives resolution, and more or less the same objectives resolution it became the preamble of India. Okay. Preamble of India. Okay. So which was the first country to have the preamble? Who called it the identity card of the constitution? N.A. Palkiwala. So our preamble is based on objectives resolution moved by whom? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Whether the objectives resolution was accepted by Constituent Assembly? Yes. Okay. So next, this is the preamble. So I hope almost all of you have bited. At any point of time, you should be able to recall. We the people of India, having solemnly resolved, all of us together once. Okay. We the people of India, together having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the nation. On this day, November 26, 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves the Constitution. Okay, the Constitution. Some things that we need to know before we go with the detailed discussion of each and every word which is present over here. So these are the things which are very important from exam point of view. So whether the preamble has ever been amended, we have discussed about the concept of amendment, right? So amendment can be brought to the Constitution by whom? By Parliament. Okay. What kind of majority is required? Special majority. We also discussed that there are some things which can be amended through simple majority. Okay. But those things we will be discussing in a separate topic called as amendment of the Constitution. But now we will understand that generally amendments require special majority. So now if a question arises whether preamble has ever been amended, yes, it has been amended. How many times? Only once. Okay. So what is the name of that amendment? 42nd constitutional amendment. So this 42nd constitutional amendment is very important from exam point of view. Okay. There are so many amendments, close to 105 amendments are there. But among the amendments, there are few amendments which are very important, and 42nd amendment is one of them. 42nd amendment is one of them. Through 42nd amendment, 3 words were added. One is socialist, another one was secular, and third one is integrity. Now, based on this topic, they asked a question probably in 2023 or 24. So, what they asked is, what was the original status of the Constitution in 1950? So, there you should be able to identify that the terms social, secular, and integrity were not present. Okay, so that's why I said you need to memorize. Okay, memorization plus extra this information if you have, then you will be able to address such kind of questions very confidently. Okay, confidently. So, the terms added to preamble were through 42nd amendment were socialist, secular, and integrity. Okay, integrity. Okay. Now here we need to understand few things. We need not memorize here. Okay, we have to just understand. Ingredients of the preamble or components. Source of authority of the constitution. Okay, so source of authority, who gives the power? It's people of India. So we start it, we the people of India. Okay, so that is the source of authority. Okay, source of authority. So such kind of questions they may not frame in prelims. They may not ask you which among the following acts as a source of authority for the Constitution of India. Option number A, people of India. Option number 2, MPs of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Option number 3, president. Option number 4, none. In that fashion, they will not frame a question, but a basic understanding is required. So when we are learning, we shall understand in that fashion. If at all a question is framed, who acts as a source of authority for the Constitution of India? It is we the people of India. Okay, we the people of India. Next, nature of Indian state. So what kind of Indian state? So here we come across a term called a state, very important. Often we get confused. So first we need to gain clarity about this term called a state. Because generally when we hear this term state in our day-to-day life, okay, what we imagine? We imagine about Karnataka, we imagine about Maharashtra, we imagine about Tamil Nadu, okay, we imagine about the states. But here in Constitution, whenever we come across a term called a state, it has multiple meanings based on the context. Even for India as a whole, we refer as a state. India is a state. Sometimes while reading newspaper, you come across this term. India can be referred as a state. When they are referring to central government, they may call it a state. When they are referring to what? Parliament, for that also they may call it as state. So for time being, you need not get confused. So when we say state here, actually its definition is present in article number 12. When we start discussing about fundamental rights, we will discuss in detail. So when I say state, they may refer to central government, they may refer to state government, it may refer to what? Parliament, it may refer to state legislature. So it has a very generic meaning. Okay, it has a very generic meaning. Okay. So declares India as sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republican authority. So what are these words? We will be discussing one by one. So if at all a question appears, so what is the nature of Indian state? Otherwise in the prelims if they frame a question like this, consider the following. Okay, sovereignty, sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. Okay, another one is, let's take fascist. So let us not try to go into its meaning. So let's assume there are 6 options. First option is sovereign, second one is socialist, secular, democratic, republic. So another 6th one is fascist. Consider the following. How many of the above are considered as nature or as considered as features of Indian state? Only 1, only 2, all 3, 5 or all 6? 5. Fascist is not part of Indian what? State. So see, even they may not frame a question, but when we are comprehending the content, we should retain in this fashion, so that you will understand what has to be retained, what has to be ignored. Okay, what has to be ignored. Okay. So next time when I say which are the features which qualify to be called as the nature, which define the nature of Indian state, okay, you should be able to recall that sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. Now in the mains when you are writing answers, they are not expecting you to write all the preamble, we the people of India in 1949, no. So to the required extent, you should be able to recall that the nature of the Indian state is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republic. Okay. So in between whatever parts are there, you should be able to recall. So once we start discussing mains related answer writing, so I will let you know how exactly these statements can be extracted and where we can add them. Okay, where we can add them. So now we got to that nature of Indian state is so sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republic. Okay, and republic. Objectives of the constitution. So what does the constitution intend? What does it want to achieve? It wants to achieve what? It wants to achieve justice. It wants to achieve liberty. It wants to give equality. It wants to build fraternity. Okay. Now later on we will be discussing with the help of examples what is justice, what is liberty, what is equality, what is fraternity. But for time being we shall understand that what are the objectives of the Constitution of India? Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. So which are the features considered as nature of the Indian constitution or Indian state? Republic. Similarly here, which are the objectives of the constitution? Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Okay, fraternity. Next, date of adoption of the constitution. It is 26 November 1949. Okay, so which we are aware, 26 November 1949. 49. Next, we will start discussing these terms in detail. Okay, these terms in detail. So wherever possible, if you want to add a Kannada word correspondingly, you can add in your notes. Okay, but during the discussion, I will not be using any kind of Kannada words. Okay. So sovereign. So what does sovereign mean? Self-rule. Okay, self-rule. Neither a dependency or dominion of any other nation, but an independent state. See here, independent, again that term state appeared. Here state does not mean any state. It means independent country. Independent country. Neither a dependency. For what fashion you can, for in what way you can depend on others? For example, now before independence, now presently we make laws. So what is the process involved in making laws? Lok Sabha will pass a bill, Raj Sabha will pass a bill, President will sign. Okay. Can we call that we have made a sovereign law? Yes, it's a sovereign law. We the people of India have made laws because our representatives, we have sent them to Lok Sabha, they sat together, they discussed, they made law. So can we call it as a sovereignty? Yes, we can call it a sovereignty. So the laws made by us, they are being imposed on us. Who have made the laws? We have made. We the people of country, we have made the laws. But not directly, indirectly. How? We have sent our representatives to Lok Sabha, so they have made laws on our behalf. So indirectly, we have made laws to govern ourselves. Okay, to govern ourselves. So this is sovereignty. But before independence, the laws required to rule India. For example, Government of India Act 1935, we will be discussing later on. Government of India Act 1919, which is called as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Government of India Act 1909, Morley-Minto reforms. So who made these laws? The British Parliament made these laws. The British Parliament made these laws, and those laws were enforced on us. So in making those laws, whether people of India were involved directly or indirectly? No. Whether our representatives were involved directly or indirectly? No. Our representatives were not involved, but still they made laws and they enforced on us. So it means before 1947, whether we were sovereign? No. We were dependent. Dependent on whom? Britishers. Okay. So later on we will learn what is a dominion. For time being you will not get confused. Just understand that before independence we were dependent on someone. But today whether we are dependent? We are independent. Okay. We are independent. No one can dictate us what kind of law we have to make. We the people of this country and our representatives will decide what kind of laws are good for the country. Hence, India is a sovereign country. India is a sovereign state. Whether I use the term sovereign country or sovereign state, both of them carry the same meaning. Okay, carry the same meaning. So, neither a dependency or dominion of any other nation, but an independent state. Questions they are not going to ask you in the prelims, but we'll learn in this fashion. If at all they frame a question like, so India is neither a dependent and an independent state. Which word in the preamble indicates it? Republic, sovereign, socialist, secular. The sovereign term indicates it. Okay, that much if you are able to recall, that would be sufficient. Okay, that would be sufficient. No authority above it. So no one is above India. Means no one can dictate us. So it means free to conduct its own affairs, both internal and external. Very important. So free to conduct its own affairs. For example, what kind of law I will pass? It is left to Indians. What kind of policy I will bring? Okay, whether I will bring reservation or whatever, whether I will make the bus passes free. So all these are internal things. So no external entity is going to tell us. So based on our own will, we are going to make laws. Based on our own will, we are going to make policies. No one is going to dictate us. Okay, this is in case of internal. In case of external affair, now India, there are so many countries, so we have relationship with almost every other country. The most famous countries, for example, giant countries, USA, Russia, China, Japan, Europe, within Europe, UK, Germany, Africa, Latin America, Australia. There are so many countries. So with which country you should have a good relationship and with which country you should not have any kind of relationship? Can anyone dictate us? Can USA say that no, you should only enjoy a good relationship with us, you should not enjoy any kind of relationship with Russia? Can it dictate us? No, it is left to us what kind of relationship we want to carry with the other countries, good or bad. Okay, so whether we want to purchase oil from Middle East or whether we want to purchase oil from Russia or whether we want to purchase it from USA, it is left to us. No one can dictate us. Whether we want to purchase weapons from France or whether we want to purchase it from Russia, no one can dictate us. So it indicates what? Free to conduct external affairs. So when I say sovereign, it also indicates free to conduct internal affairs as well as external affairs. So in the examination, again they will frame a statement. Free to conduct internal and external affairs. This is indicated by which word in the preamble? Sovereign. Okay, sovereign. Next, this is very important. So does not constitute a limitation on her sovereignty. So in 1949, India's declaration of continuation of membership of Commonwealth. Okay. So what is Commonwealth? Not that important, even from current affairs point of view also, it's not that important organization now. But UNO is important. It's called as United Nations Organization. United Nations Organization. So this is very important. United Nations is very important. Repeatedly, we will be encountering this term in the newspaper. Okay, in the newspaper. So India was under the rule of Britishers. Britishers ruled India. Apart from India, there were many other countries which Britain ruled. Not only India, it also ruled many other countries. Okay, so the countries which were ruled by Britain, all together they came together and they formed an organization called as Commonwealth. That would be sufficient. From current affairs point of view, again whatever extra information is required, we will be adding. For time being, we shall understand that Commonwealth is a group of nations which were ruled by Britain. So even after getting independence in 1949, so we got independence in 1947, but in 1949 India declared that we will not come out of Commonwealth, we will still remain as a member of Commonwealth. Okay, Commonwealth. So whether this will create any kind of whether it will destroy the sovereignty of India? Okay, so we should not consider like this. It should not be considered as limitation on the sovereignty of India. Okay, even though India is a member of Commonwealth, we should not consider that it limits the sovereignty of India. Okay, it limits the sovereignty of India. So we should not consider that in that fashion. Now next, second one is very important. India's membership of the United Nations Organization. So when we start discussing international affairs, okay, we'll start discussing about United Nations in detail. So in United Nations, we have many specialized agencies. For example, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Health Organization, UNESCO, International Labour Organization. So many different specialized agencies we have. Apart from them, we also have some programs. Okay, many programs of UN. So now, when any country becomes a member of UN, so what does the UN does is, it will form global rules and regulations. For India, who will frame the rules and regulations? Or who will make the law for India? Parliament will make the law for India. Okay, Parliament will make the law for India. So similarly, we require some laws which are used to govern all the countries. Okay, all the countries. For example, just to make it simple, we shall take an example. Now, if you look at ocean, so ocean belongs to which country? Okay, so again later on we will be discussing about that ocean as well. There is a convention called as United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, but initially it will cause confusion. So what we shall assume is ocean is a common property. Okay, now here if India is there, it belongs to India. Here we have Sri Lanka, it also belongs to Sri Lanka as well. So if it belongs to both of them, then both of them may quarrel with one another. Okay, I will do fishing here, I will do fishing here. So both of them, they may start quarreling with one another. So in order to avoid this quarrel, there should be a global law. Okay, global law which says that in this area only India can do fishing, in this area only Sri Lanka can do fishing. Okay, that global law is made by whom? United Nations. Okay, United Nations. Now we have already declared that as a sovereign state, who will make laws for us? We ourselves, we are going to make laws. But here United Nations is going to impose some restrictions, saying that in the ocean only in this much area India can fish, and in this area Sri Lanka can fish. It means whether India's sovereignty is being compromised. Yes, at the superficial level it appears that India's sovereignty is being compromised. India's sovereignty is being compromised, but that is not true, because here ocean is a common resource. It's not a resource which belongs to India. Hence, India being a member of United Nations does not limit its sovereignty. Very important. India being a member of UN does not limit its sovereignty. Okay, sovereignty. Yesterday we have seen there are some limitations on the sovereignty of Parliament. Which are they? Written Constitution, fundamental rights, federal structure, judicial review. Okay, those are in the context of Indian Parliament. Here we are discussing in the context of Indian state. So when it comes to sovereignty of parliament, there are limitations. When it comes to sovereignty of parliament, there are limitations. But when it comes to sovereignty of India, there are no limitations. There are no limitations. India is a completely sovereign state. See, don't get confused. Whether parliament is completely sovereign? No. Whether India is completely sovereign? Yes. Okay. So whether India being a member of Commonwealth limits its sovereignty? No. Whether India being a member of United Nations organization limits its sovereignty? No. Fundamental rights limit the sovereignty of parliament. Written nature of the constitution limits the sovereignty of parliament. India being a member of United Nations limits its sovereignty. India being a member of BRICS limits its sovereignty. India being a member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization limits its sovereignty. Okay. So later on, as part of the current affairs, we will be discussing many organizations. For example, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So India being a member of any of these organizations does not constitute as a limitation on the sovereignty of India. Does not constitute as a limitation. Very important. Okay. As a sovereign state, India can either acquire a foreign territory or cede a part of its territory in favor of a foreign state. So India's sovereignty, what does it indicate? If we want, we can take the territory of someone else. For example, let's assume a territory which belongs to Bangladesh. Okay, a disputed territory, let's assume. So can we take forcefully from Bangladesh? Yes, as a sovereign state, if it is a disputed territory and if we have a claim, we can take it from them. And if we want to give some our area to other country, okay, so suppose if we want to give some part of our India to Bangladesh, so that is also possible. So ceding a part of territory means giving a small part of our country land to someone else. It means being a sovereign country, India can acquire new territory and also cede a part of territory. Cede means giving some part of India to others. Okay. So in the examination, they will frame questions in this fashion. As a sovereign state, which of the following options India can exercise? Option number 1, India can acquire foreign territory. Option number 2, India can cede its own territory to other state. How many of the above are correct? Only 1, only 2, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. Both 1 and 2. So this is how we should learn the content. Okay, this is how we should learn the content. Now once we are done with this, when you go for revision, just you should be able to identify keywords. Okay, keywords, and based upon that you will start revising. Okay, so can you just quickly recall which are the important keywords associated with sovereign? No dependency on others. Next, self-rule. Yes. So part of UN does not compromise the limitation of the India's sovereignty. No authority above India. Good. Acquire a territory or cede a territory. Okay, cede a territory. So here we do not require that exact memorization. Okay, unlike the preamble we have memorized, right? Here memorization is not required, but understanding is required. For example, initially when we begin, we don't know the meaning of a term called cede, S-C-C-E-D. So what does cede mean? So giving away. So giving away part of its territory. So whichever words you encounter here, what you will do, if you are not aware of its meaning, you will write down the meaning. So after completion of the class, what I will urge you is, if you have time and if you have Lakshmikant book with you, once you start reading from the original book, so what all things we have discussed here, you should be able to connect. Because here I included keywords and connection of the dot is happening through what? Happening verbally. It is not present here in the form of a statement. So once after this class, if you read that, then you will become perfect in this topic. You will become perfect. So we completed with sovereignty. Next, socialist. Okay, socialist. Congress party adopted the resolution to establish a socialist pattern of its society in its Awadi session in 1955. Okay, 1955. So Congress has played a very important role in the independence movement. So while discussing about the Indian history, we will be discussing in detail. Okay, we will be discussing in detail. So Congress party was found in which year? In 1885. In 1885, Congress was formed. So during the discussion of history, we will discuss in detail. Okay. So the first session, every year, all the Congress leaders, they used to meet at different places. So that meeting was called a session. Okay. First session, second session, and so on. It was also called as annual session. Every year they used to meet once. Okay. So first time they met at Bombay. Okay. Someone presided it, W.C. Banerjee. 86, Calcutta. Dadabhai Nauroji. So all those things we'll be discussing in detail. So 85, 86, 87, 88, every year there used to be a session. In that fashion, there was one session which was held in 1955. After independence itself, this session was held. So all the leaders of the Congress who had gathered together, they decided that what kind of pattern we have to follow. We have to follow what? Socialistic pattern of society. Okay, socialistic pattern of society. Now first we need to understand what is socialism. Okay, we will not go into detailed aspects. We will just learn at the superficial, at the superficial level. So when it comes to what patterns, there are two patterns. One is socialistic, another one is capitalist. See, we will not go into the detailed aspects of socialist and capitalist. Now we will just discuss at the superficial level, so that in this topic we will gain clarity. Okay, we will gain clarity. So in capitalist society, in capitalist country, everything is owned by private entities. Okay, generally. In case of socialist, everything is owned by government. For example, we shall take some sectors. The famous sector is, for example, telecom sector. So all of us, we use mobile, we use smartphones. Okay, can you just list out the companies which provide the services when it comes to telecom? Yes, Airtel, good. BSNL, next Jio, or okay. So Airtel, BSNL, Jio. Among them, which one is a government entity? Which one is a private entity? BSNL is a government entity. Jio and Airtel are private entity. Okay. So in a capitalist country, there will be no government entity. In a capitalist country, there will be no government entity. All the services will be provided by what? Private entities. Okay. So there will be no concept like BSNL. Okay. So such countries are called as capitalist countries. Okay. Capitalist countries. Now when you look at the quality of services, okay. So again, it should not be like a criticism of the government and all, but still when you look at the quality of services, if you look at the BSNL's quality of service and Jio's quality of service, which one is better? Obviously, Jio's quality of service, service being delivered by Jio and Airtel, so they far surpass that of the BSNL. So it means whenever there is a capitalist kind of state, okay, the quality of service will be very good. Okay, very good. Now next the question might arise, then why not remove all the government entities and only give permission for the private entities to start new companies and all? Obviously, because of the competition, the price will come down, so better service will start coming. Okay, better service will start coming. But at the same time, it has one negative shade as well. It has a negative shade. So a negative aspect. Now, when you look at Jio or Airtel, so it comes to providing services. So which areas they generally focus more? Urban areas or rural areas? Okay. If you look at northeastern part of India, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, okay, so there the population density is very less. Even if you fit a tower also, the usage of that, the number of users will be very less. Means the amount which they have invested for the infrastructure and the profit which they are making, when you look at the ratio, the profit ratio is very, very less. But if you look at Bagalkot, Bangalore, other metropolitan cities, so all of them, they will be what? Ready to invest as much as possible. They want to bring new towers, so provide the best service, because they make profits in urban areas. Okay? They make profit in urban areas. So if we completely privatize, then there are some parts of India which will not receive the even basic required quality as well. Okay, to provide that basic required quality in every remote part of the country, we have BSNL. Okay, we have BSNL. You might have seen many people, they maintain two SIMs. Okay, when they are in Bagalkot or urban area, they maintain Jio and Airtel. When they are traveling in a train to some faraway distances, they maintain a BSNL SIM. Because almost in every place we will get a BSNL coverage, that network availability is there. Okay, so because the BSNL's goal is not to only to provide the quality of service, to also see that the service reaches everyone in every nook and corner of the country. Okay, hence what we have done, rather than just going for privatization, we also have government entities. So both of them, they work together. Okay, Hence when it comes to India, we call it as a mixed economy. We have the principles of both socialism as well as capitalism. Okay, why socialism? Because we have BSNL. Why capitalism? Because we have Jio and Airtel. Okay, Jio and Airtel. So from this we understood what is capitalism. So the opposite of capitalism is Socialism or socialistic? Now we'll not go into detail because again there are some minute differences we'll not be discussing here. Socialistic means you understand that everything is owned by government. Nothing is owned by private. Nothing is owned by private. It means in a socialistic country, only BSNL will be there. There will be no Airtel, there will be no Jio. In a capitalist country, there will be only Airtel and Jio, there will be no BSNL. Okay, no BSNL. So in Indian constitution, what do we have? Socialist. But if you look at the real life examples, so whether it is completely socialistic? No. We have a mixed mode. Capitalist tendencies, capitalist features as well as socialistic features. Okay. Hence, very important. We'll proceed to the next part. So Congress said we need to have socialistic pattern of society. It means almost everything should be owned by government. I just took the example of telecommunication. It similarly extends to every other services as well. For example, transport as a service. So whether it is socialistic or capitalistic, both. We have government KSRTC buses, at the same time best service providers we have VRO and many other agencies. Okay, so here also it's a mixed mode. Okay, it's a mixed mode. So hence Indian brand of socialism, the term socialism which is present in the preamble, it indicates democratic socialism, not communistic socialism. So when we say communistic socialism, everything should be owned by government only. The government only, that is communistic socialism. But here democratic socialism means both socialist as well as capitalist ideas exist together. Okay, exist together. Now if you are getting confused also, just at a superficial level we shall understand that what kind of socialism brand does India have? Democratic socialism or capitalist socialism? Democratic socialism. That would be sufficient. Okay, that would be sufficient. So communistic socialism, also state socialism, involves a nationalization of all means of production and distribution and the abolition of private property. In communistic kind of socialism, there will be no private property. Every property will be owned by government. Production, okay, nationalization of all means of production. So production, can you give an example of production? Pen is being produced, camera is being produced, interactive panel is being produced, biscuit is being produced, computers are being produced, laptops are being produced. Okay, so all the production will be done by government companies themselves. There will be no private company. Okay, there will be no private company. And distribution. So who can distribute? Who can do marketing, distribution, everything? Government will do it. So this is a communistic socialism. So nationalization means, what do we understand by nationalization? All will be brought under the government's control. So that is meant by nationalization. Okay, nationalization. But do we follow such kind of communistic socialism in India? No. What do we follow? We follow democratic socialism. So what does democratic socialism mean? It holds faith in mixed economy. What is mixed economy? Where both public and private sectors. So public means socialism related principles, private means capitalism. Okay, capitalism related principles. So here both public and private sector coexist side by side. Okay, side by side. So in India, both public and private sector coexist side by side. Which term in the preamble indicates it? Okay, because what kind of socialism we follow? Democratic socialism. Very important. Okay, we should not get confused. If at all they frame a question, they are never framed. If at all they frame, we should be able to clearly identify that it is democratic socialism. Okay, democratic socialism. Okay. Here SC indicates Supreme Court. Supreme Court. Supreme Court says that it aims to end poverty, ignorance, disease and inequality of opportunity. Okay. So why India is following democratic socialism? To achieve this goal. What is that? To end poverty. Poverty should be completely brought to zero. Okay. Ignorance. Okay. Diseases, inequality. So to remove all these things, we require what? What kind of socialism? Democratic socialism. Supreme Court has said it in one of the judgments. Not important from Prelims point of view. In mains, if you want, you can quote it. So they are not going to ask you in this fashion, in which context Supreme Court said like this. So they are not going to frame a question. Not that important. Okay, not that important. Okay. Indian socialism is a blend of Marxism and Gandhiism, leaning heavily towards Gandhian socialism. Okay, so already we saw what kind of socialism exists in India. Democratic socialism. Next, when it comes to socialistic principles, there are some socialistic principles which are held by a person called as Marx. Okay, Karl Marx. And one more set of principles held by Gandhiji. So both of them, they believe in socialism, but the principles of socialism which they believe are slightly different. So Gandhian socialistic principles are slightly different from Marx socialistic principles. Okay, socialistic principles. So which socialism principles we have borrowed? Whether we have borrowed from Gandhi or whether we have borrowed from Marx. Okay, so it's a blend. Blend means it's a mix. So we have taken some socialistic principles, borrowed some socialistic principles from Gandhi and some socialistic principles from Marx. Hence it's a blend of Marxism and Gandhiism. But many principles we have adopted from Gandhi or Marx? Gandhi. So leaning heavily towards Gandhian. Okay, Gandhian principles. Now what is the exact difference between Gandhian socialistic principle and Marxism? Now we will not discuss. If time permits, if it is required, then we may discuss in the forthcoming classes. But for time being, we will not focus on those aspects. We will only understand that when it comes to socialistic principles, there is a slight difference between the Gandhian thoughts and Marx thoughts. But while adopting, what we have done, we have taken a mix. Some features from Gandhi, some features from Marx. But predominantly, we have leaned towards whom? We have taken the features of Gandhian socialism. Okay, Gandhian socialism. The new economic policy 1991 of LPG. So LPG indicates liberalization. Again, don't think that LPG means liquid petroleum gas. Okay, no, it's not that LPG. So liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Okay. So these terms we will discuss while discussing economy. Okay, economic. In 1991, India faced a major problem. So those things also we'll discuss during the discussing of economy. The major problem was balance of payment problem. Balance of payment problem. So what is balance of payment problem? Now when we import some items from other countries, we import some, let's assume, electronic goods from USA, oil from Russia, okay, or oil from Middle East. We have to pay them money. So can we pay rupee? If we pay rupee, they will not accept. They want dollars. Okay. But at that time, we did not have sufficient dollars. So how will we get dollars? By exports. When we sell something, for example, if we sell wheat or rice to China, so China will give us dollars. Okay. By using those dollars, whatever we have imported, we'll start paying them. Okay, we'll start paying them. So because of some reasons, there were no significant exports. Exports were not there, but imports were heavy. So as exports were less, we could not earn dollars. So hence, for imports, we could not pay dollars. Okay. So that problem we call it as balance of payment crisis. So we required dollars. Okay. So we ran from pillar to post. We wanted loan in the form of dollars, but no one was ready to give loan. At that time, International Monetary Fund, IMF, it came forward and it said, yes, we will give you loan. We will give you loan, but there is a precondition. Okay, there is a precondition. Yes, definitely you can gain success, but there is a precondition. Whatever the instructions that we are giving you, you have to follow diligently. Then itself you will be able to crack the examination in 2027. Okay. Similarly, so International Monetary Fund, it made a what precondition that you have to bring some changes in your country. Then itself we are going to give you loan. So before 1991, majority of the companies in India were governmentally owned. There was no privatization. So private companies, they did not have the permission to start a new factory or new company. So IMF said only if you privatize, if you start allowing the private telecom companies like Jio and Airtel, then itself we will give you loan. So India, because of that pressure and many other internal discussions, finally we brought reforms called as LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, globalization. We will be discussing these things in detail later on. Okay, but at least we got to know that there was a policy called as LPG policy, which was brought in 1991 because of what? Balance of payment crisis. So at that time, when we started with privatization and all, okay, we started with what? Privatization and all. So the new economic policy, however, diluted the socialistic credentials of the Indian state. So previously majority of the companies were owned by government. So when majority of the companies are owned by government, then we call it as socialistic. Okay, socialistic. But because of the LPG, what happened? That socialistic credentials, the socialistic philosophy, it got weakened because private sector also it emerged. Private sector also emerged. Okay. So again, this question they cannot frame in prelims. Okay. So if they ask something about the socialism, then you can quote in mains. So India was basically a socialistic country, but because of the 1991 LPG reforms, so our socialistic credentials got diluted. Then we started having a faith in the mixed economy where both government and private sector, they coexist. Okay, they coexist. So this is about what? Socialism. Okay, socialism. Next, secular. So we completed sovereign, socialist. So sovereign, so it's completely, India is completely sovereign, or are there any limitations? There are no limitations. It is completely sovereign. Whether Indian Parliament is completely sovereign? No, there are limitations. Okay. Whether India being a member of United Nations constitutes a limitation on India's sovereignty? No. Okay, no. Next, as a sovereign country, can India give its territory to others? As a sovereign country, can India acquire territory of others? Yes. So when it comes to socialism, what kind of socialism we follow? Democratic. So have we adopted some principles of Marxism? Have you adopted some principles of Gandhism? So more we are adopted from Gandhi or from Marx? Gandhi. Okay. Next, the third point, that is secular. Indian Constitution embodies the positive concept of secularism. Okay. So in mains they are asked about this concept multiple times. Okay. So how Indian secularism is different from secularism followed in other countries. Okay. So in mains they asked, but just based on this content we may not be able to answer. Based on current affairs, many examples, we should be able to answer what mains answers. But still, so positive concept of secularism, then if it is a positive, there should be something called as negative concept of secularism as well. If there is a positive concept of secularism, definitely there should be a negative concept of secularism. So what does the positive concept of secularism speak about in India? That is, all religions in our country, irrespective of their strength, have same status and support from the state. All religions, can you just list the religions in India? Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism. Okay. Okay. So there are what different types of religions which exist in India. Okay, which exist in India. Now, that is all religions in our country, irrespective of their strength. Okay. So Hinduism, major population. Okay, second highest, Islam. Okay. Third highest, probably Christianity, Buddhism. So there are different religions which coexist. So in Hinduism there are more people, hence we have to extend more support to Hindus. Is there any such kind of concept in India? No. So irrespective of their strength, whether there are only 100 people or 1000 or lakh, so equal kind of support is being extended to every religion. Okay, equal kind of support is being extended to every religion. For example, to construct a temple, if government is giving money, okay, so to construct a temple, when government is giving money, what does it indicate? Whether state is extending support to a religion? Here state means government. So when government gives money to construct a temple, so it means state is giving support to a religion. For Hinduism it is giving support. Okay. Similarly, for Hajj pilgrimage, people who go from India, so will they bear the travel expenses? Indian government bears the travel expenses. So when they bear the travel expenses, so what does it mean? They are supporting Islam. They are supporting Islam. Similarly, Buddhism related, Jainism related. Okay. So different types of support Indian government extends. I just took one example. One is providing what travel expenses for Hajj pilgrimage and construction of the temple. Whatever the money the government will give. So from this we understand that government supports Hinduism, government supports Islam, government supports Christianity, government supports Buddhism, government supports Jainism as well as Zoroastrianism or Parsis. It means government extends equal amount of support to all the religions irrespective of their strength. Whether they are 10 crore in population, 5 lakh in population, irrespective of that, it extends every support. So this is a positive concept of secularism. This is positive concept of secularism. So then what is negative concept of secularism? I think whether it's there or not, we'll just check it once. Okay. So negative concept of secularism means, so state is completely neutral. State is completely neutral. For example, you want to build a temple, then you mobilize the money from your own community and build the temple. You want to go to Hajj pilgrimage, okay, you earn, you work, and then you go to pilgrimage. Government is not going to give any kind of money to you. This is negative concept of secularism. Then what does the government do? It focuses on secular aspects. For example, construction of road. Whether a road will be used only by Hindus, Muslims or Christianity? No. It is free for everyone. So when you construct a road, okay, it can be used by anyone. When you construct a hospital, okay, so will hospital facilities be used only by some community? No. Irrespective of their religion, all will start using the government hospital facilities. Okay. Similarly, if you take any other infrastructure, it can be used by, if you take school as an example, so all can go to that school irrespective of their religion. So it means in the negative concept of secularism, in some other countries, for example in Europe, they follow negative concept of secularism. It means they'll give money for building assets or infrastructure which is common for all the religions. It may be school, it may be hospital, it may be road. They will not extend support for a particular religion like Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism. So that is called as negative concept of secularism. Okay. So India, we have secularism. India is a secular country. Yes. Okay. Through which amendment? Through which amendment we added the term called as secular? 42nd amendment. So what kind of secularism we follow? Positive or negative? We follow positive concept of secularism. Okay, secularism. We covered sovereign, socialist, secular. The next is democratic. Okay, democratic. So India is a democratic polity. Okay. So generally we have heard the definition of the democracy in our high school days probably. Okay, by the people, to the people. Okay, all those things. So democratic polity based on doctrine of popular sovereignty. So what do we understand by popular sovereignty? It means this democracy is being executed by people of this country. Popular means people. Okay. So who have that sovereignty? People of this country. How? We will make laws for ourselves. How we will make laws for ourselves? We will elect our representatives. Okay. If our elected representatives are not working properly, what we will do? After 5 years, we will replace them. We will elect someone else. So here, popular sovereignty. That is meant by popular sovereignty. Okay. So people elect the representatives, and if they are not working properly, they will be replaced by someone else. Okay. Someone else. Now in the examination, they may ask you, which word in the preamble indicates the doctrine of popular sovereignty? Democratic. Okay. Democratic. Possession of supreme power by the people. In India, supreme power is possessed in whom? President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, Constitution, or people of India? People of India. Okay, people of India. So again, the examination, they may frame a question like this. So which word in the preamble indicates the possession of supreme power in the people of India? Democratic. Okay, democratic. So in this fashion, they may frame a question. Okay, they may frame a question. Now next, when it comes to democracy, generally there are two types. Okay, generally there are two types. One is direct democracy, another one is indirect democracy. So based on the discussion that we have until yesterday's class, we should be able to clearly tell whether Indian democracy is a direct democracy or indirect democracy. It's an indirect democracy. Why? Because if it was direct, then to pass a law, okay, just Lok Sabha members will not meet, all the 130 crore people will meet, okay, they will make the law. So that is not the case. Whether all the 130 crore people will meet? No. Our elected representatives, they will sit in a chamber called as Lok Sabha, okay, and some of the indirectly elected members called as Rajya Sabha, they will sit in a chamber and they will vote based upon that laws are made. So hence our democracy is not a direct democracy, our democracy is indirect democracy, okay, indirect democracy. But still in this context, we shall just learn at the superficial level the features of direct democracy. Features of direct democracy. So people exercise supreme power directly. So when any bill is being brought, so let's assume there is a common platform wherein all of us, we can send the WhatsApp messages. So we want to pass this bill. We want to pass this bill. So how many of you say yes? Please send a message saying yes. So all 130 crore people will send yes, and based upon that, how many of them have said yes, how many of them have said no, the bill will be considered as passed or failed. Okay. So we have not yet gone to that extent because ours is not a direct democracy, ours is a indirect democracy. So in direct democracy, what? People exercise the supreme power directly. So where it is possible, when the population is very less, there we can go for direct democracy. But for a vast country like India, so it will be very difficult for us to maintain that direct democracy kind of thing. Okay. So example, it exists in Switzerland. Okay. In Switzerland, how exactly they follow, we shall not worry about it. In the examination, if they ask, can you just identify the country where there is a direct democracy? Switzerland. Now you need not make a list of all the countries, because in the childhood days, it used to happen. Parents used to become very happy when their wards are able to recall such kind of things. They used to make us memorize a list of all the countries in the world. So that kind of attitude is not required to crack this examination. We are not going to become the master of the entire world geography. Okay, we will only become jack of the required extent of information we will take, so that it will help us to crack the examination. So here we will not go beyond Switzerland. So just we know that there is one country where there is a direct democracy, and that country is Switzerland. There may be other countries as well, but we will not explore. Okay, we will not explore. Next, its devices are. Okay. Now for time being we will not discuss these things. We will just understand. We will just memorize. So referendum, initiative, recall, plebiscite. So these are the devices of direct democracy. Okay. So in the examination, if they ask plebiscite, referendum, initiative, these are devices of option number 1, direct democracy. Option number 2, indirect democracy. Only 1, only 2, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. Only 1. Okay. Only direct democracy. So these are the tools used by direct democracy. So what are these? We shall for time being not focus on them. Okay. Not focus on them. So indirect democracy. Representatives elected by people exercise supreme power. So in indirect democracy, who exercise supreme power? Representatives. Okay, the members of Lok Sabha whom we have elected. So on behalf of us, they will vote. Okay, they will vote. So hence, representatives elected by the people exercise supreme power. Okay, supreme power in indirect democracy. Okay, indirect democracy. Carry on government and make laws. Among these Lok Sabha members and Rajya Sabha members, some of them will become ministers and they carry on government. And the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha together they will make laws. Okay. So in indirect democracy, our representatives will carry the government, our representatives will make the laws. Okay, will make the laws. Next, indirect democracy is also called as representative democracy. So this term is also equally important. Okay. So whether direct democracy is called as representative democracy? No. Indirect democracy is also called as representative democracy, because here the elected representatives will make laws and elected representatives will run the government. Okay, will run the government. Next, within indirect democracy. Within indirect democracy, see, we discussed two types. One is direct democracy, another one is indirect democracy. So indirect democracy, we saw direct. Next, indirect. Within indirect we have parliamentary democracy, and next presidential democracy. Okay, presidential democracy. So again, the difference between parliamentary and presidential democracy in detail we will be discussing in a topic called as parliamentary system. Okay, parliamentary system. Here we shall understand that India falls under parliamentary system or presidential democracy. Okay, India is an example for this. Okay, India is an example for parliamentary form of indirect democracy. Okay, indirect democracy. An example for presidential form of indirect democracy is USA. USA also we have democracy. What kind of democracy? Direct or indirect? Indirect. So parliamentary democracy or presidential democracy? Presidential. What exactly is the difference between parliamentary and presidential? We will be discussing later on in a topic called as parliamentary system. Okay, parliamentary system. So Indian Constitution, representative parliamentary democracy. So what kind of system we have? Representative democracy, parliamentary democracy or presidential democracy? Parliamentary democracy. Okay. So the important feature of parliamentary democracy, the important feature of parliamentary system is executive is responsible to legislature. So this statement might appear very simple, but multiple times. Okay. If you refer the past 30 years question paper, at least 7 to 8 times they are focused on this. Which is an important feature of parliamentary democracy? Executive is responsible to legislature. And in the examination, if they make a statement, for example, executive means council of ministers is responsible to, sometimes they'll say parliament and sometimes they say Lok Sabha. Okay, just for time being understand that if they say council of ministers is responsible to parliament, then that will be wrong. That will be wrong. In general actually it is correct, but from exam point of view that will be wrong. If they say council of ministers is responsible to Lok Sabha, then it is correct. Okay. In generic, executive is responsible to legislature, but in the India's context, council of ministers is responsible to whom? If they make a statement called as parliament, that will be wrong. Only Lok Sabha. So council of ministers are responsible to Lok Sabha. It means council of ministers will act as per the wish of the Lok Sabha. If the council of ministers are not working as per the expectations of the Lok Sabha, then what Lok Sabha can do? It can remove them by passing no confidence motion. Okay, no confidence motion. Okay. By looking at some of the features of the Indian Constitution, we understand that what India is of democratic character. India is of democratic character. Okay, democratic character.
Thank you.
So when we look at some of the features of the Indian Constitution, we'll understand that it is democratic in nature. So already we have seen, but apart from them, which feature in the Indian Constitution indicates that India is democratic in nature? Okay. So one, universal adult franchise. What does universal adult franchise mean? All those who are 18 years and above, so they are eligible to vote in the election. Okay. So this indicates, this one of the point which indicates that India is democratic in nature. India is democratic in nature. Next, periodic elections. Every 5 years generally there will be election. Even before that also election can take place. So periodic election also indicates that India is democratic in nature. Okay, democratic in nature. Next, rule of law. Now you will not understand what is rule of law. While discussing fundamental rights, you will understand in detail. Okay. So here India, what is the system? It's rule of law. Okay, rule of law. Means, can we do anything as per our wish, our mind? No. We should act as per the laws, rules and regulations. Okay, laws, rules and regulations. Now, in Vidyagiri circle, there is a what? Traffic signal or some cameras are there. So, again there is a rule saying that you have to wear helmet. Okay, you have to wear helmet. But without helmet, can you travel? Okay. If you travel without helmet and if it is permitted, then it means in India there is no rule of law. But here we have rule of law. Okay. So if your image is captured in the photo, later on if they ask you for a fine, then you have to pay the fine because there exists rule of law. Okay, rule of law. Again, we'll be discussing in detail once we start discussing fundamental rights. Okay. Next, independence of judiciary, very important. So when we start discussing Supreme Court and High Court, we'll understand judiciary is independent. Okay, there are some features which indicates that judiciary is independent. So why judicial independence is required? It's very much important. Now, suppose let's assume Supreme Court judge's salary. Okay, salary, it comes from which account? Consolidated Fund of India. Whether that is charged expenditure or hoarded expenditure. Charged. Supposedly, if it was a hoarded expenditure, if it is hoarded expenditure means every month the Lok Sabha should pass a bill, and through that bill itself, Supreme Court judge will get salary. Now, what Supreme Court judge might do probably? To receive the next month's salary, whatever the judgments I am giving, I should give in the favor of the government, in favor of Lok Sabha members. If I give against them, then I may not receive salary. Okay, so that would have been the case, but now it is not like that. So judiciary is independent. So irrespective of they do not have any kind of good relationship with the Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha or the executive, because automatically they will receive salary. So this automatic reception of salary every month, it points to the judicial independence. Hence judicial independence is very much important. I have just indicated one point. There are many more points which we will be discussing during the discussion of Supreme Court and High Court. So judicial independence is of paramount importance. We will be discussing later on. But here we shall understand that independence of judiciary is also one of the feature of democracy. Okay, feature of democracy. Absence of discrimination on certain grounds. Okay, so on certain grounds, absence of discrimination based on race, religion, caste, sex or place of birth. Okay, you will not discriminate a person based on his religion, you will not discriminate a person based on his caste. Okay, so again this also is one of the democratic character. Okay, democratic character. So these points are important from Prelims point of view as well as mains point of view. In Prelims they have never asked a question, but there are chances that they may ask a question. How they can frame a question? They may give 2 to 3 statements. For example, they may say rule of law, periodic elections, independence of judiciary. Which of the above constitute a manifestation of the democratic character? All the 3. So what you should do is, next whenever I ask you a question, okay, just list the features which manifest the democratic character of the India. Can you just list them? Universal edit franchise, periodic elections, rule of law, independent judiciary, absence of. Okay, good. So these things you should be able to recall. Okay, so the preparation which you are doing, it will be beneficial from both Prelims as well as mains point of view. Okay, very important. Okay, it is used in the preamble in the broader sense. Okay, embracing not only political democracy but also social and economic democracy. Economic democracy. Now, for time being, you will not understand what is social democracy. You will not understand economic democracy. We will be discussing about these terms later on. We will be discussing about these terms later on. Okay. Political democracy means we understood people will vote in the election. Universal edit franchise. But what exactly is social democracy? Okay. What is economic democracy? We will be discussing later on. Okay. We will be discussing later on. But for time being, we should understand that when a term democracy or democratic appears in the constitution, whether it is pointing only to political democracy or also it is pointing to some other democracies as well. Some other. So the term democracy in the constitution includes 3 things: political democracy, social democracy, economic democracy. Okay, economic democracy. So what is social democracy, economic democracy? We will be discussing later on. Okay, later on. Next, we will be discussing about a term called as republic. We the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, okay, republic. Okay, so what are these? These are the characteristics of the Indian state. Okay, so the last one, that is republic. Okay, republic. So what does it indicate? Democratic polity. It can be monarchy or republic. Some of them they even pronounce it as monarchy as well. So again, it is left to you. Okay, monarchy or republic. Okay, republic. So our Indian system is republic. It's not monarchy. Then what is the difference? Okay, in monarchy, head of the state, usually king or queen. Okay, it is hereditary. Example, Britain. So who is head of state in India? President. Who is head of government? Who is head of Lok Sabha? Speaker. Okay, those terms they confuse us. So I asked you in the initial few classes that you should become perfect and you should be able to overcome those confusions. Now you have that clarity, right? Whenever I speak about head of state, it is president. Okay. So here, head of state in UK, that is Britain. In Britain, it is a hereditary position. If a father dies, so next his son will become what? President. Sorry, he will be the head of state. Okay. After son dies, again the grandson. So the position is hereditary. Okay, the position is hereditary. Such system is called as monarchical system. Okay, monarchical system. So it is followed in Britain. But again, don't get confused that in Britain everything is ruled by king. No, there also his namesake itself. Like in India, president is namesake. Okay, so president will act as per the advice of the council of ministers. There also similarly, king will just act as per the advice of the council of ministers and prime minister itself. But the system is different. The position of that head of the state is hereditary. Okay, hereditary. But in India, what does republic mean? Head of state is elected. Very important. He is elected. So the term republic in the constitution or preamble indicates what? Head of the state is elected. Either he may be elected directly or indirectly for fixed term. Okay, for fixed term. For example, in India, whether president, head of state is president, right? So head of state is president in India. So president is elected or nominated? Elected. Directly elected or indirectly elected? Okay. So we are not yet discussed a topic called as president. We will be discussing in detail. In that topic, we will understand that president is elected indirectly. Okay, indirectly. So indirectly. So right. So there are some countries where the president will be directly elected as well. Okay, directly elected as well. Again, don't get confused with USA. In USA also it's not direct election. There is some system. Okay, so we shall not consider it as direct election. But what we understand that here is when we say head of the state, so elected. It may be direct or it may be indirect. Okay. Indicates that India has an elected indirectly head of state called president and he will remain in office for 5 years. He will remain in office for 5 years. Okay. Now, the second part is also very important. Now, UPSC in the previous, in 17-18, it has confused the aspirants. In 2017, it gave one kind of question, and the same topic in 18, it gave different type of question. Okay. So, what was that question? We will be discussing later on. So, just if we understand one meaning of the term, that would not be sufficient. We need to be aware of the other meanings which are present. So, we just saw one meaning of the term republic. One meaning is head of the state is elected. That is one meaning. There is another meaning for the same word, republic. Okay, another two meanings. Also means two more things. Vesting of political sovereignty in the people and not individual like king. You may not completely understand this word, but the complete political sovereignty, it rests in whom? In people. Okay, in people and not in an individual like king. So this is another meaning. Even if you do not understand completely also, for time being you just memorize it. So in examination, what kind of questions they may frame? So complete political sovereignty in the people and not individual like king. Which word in the preamble points to it? Democratic or republic? Republic. Okay, that is very important. Because when I say political sovereignty, you may get confused with what? The term democratic. But if they make a statement like this, so vesting of political sovereignty in the people and not in an individual like king. Which word in the preamble points to it? It's republic and not democratic. Okay, and not democratic. Okay. Next, another meaning. Absence of any privileged class. India, there is no system called as privileged class. For example, only people belonging to certain religion can become president. Only people belonging to certain community can become prime minister. Certain religion can become an IAS. Certain caste can become an IPS. Is there such kind of system? No. Okay. So there is no privileged class. It means all public offices. When I say public offices, it may be prime minister's post, it may be president, it may be chief minister, it may be IAS, it may be IPS, it may be judge, it may be tahsildar, anyone. All the public offices being opened to every citizen without any discrimination. Okay, without any discrimination. So this is the another meaning of the term republic. So which are the three different meanings of the same word republic? The first one is head of the state is elected. Second one, vesting of political sovereignty in people and not individual like king. What is the third one? Absence of privileged class. So what do we understand by absence of privileged class? Okay, no discrimination. All public offices are open to everyone. Okay, without any kind of discrimination. Okay, without any kind of discrimination. So this is the okay. So which all things we discussed? We the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. Okay, republic. So next we shall start with these terms called as justice and all. But before that, we shall take a break of 10 minutes. Okay, after that we shall resume. So we completed with the keywords of sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republic. So next we shall begin with justice. Okay, so justice. So what do we understand by the term justice? Yes. If someone has suffered any problem, okay, and if you give a solution to the same, it will be an example of a justice. It will be an example of a justice. So in that fashion, I just in a simple sense I have placed this. This term embraces three distinct forms: social justice, economic justice, and political justice. Okay. So when we use term justice, so we have seen social, economic, and political. Social, economic, and political. Secured through various provisions of DPSP and fundamental rights. So we have not yet discussed about DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy. Very important. We will be discussing in detail in the forthcoming classes. Okay. So DPSP indicates Directive Principles of State Policy. Okay, State Policy. So what does state policy indicate? What do we understand by state policy? Central government, state government, or any government? Any government. When we say state policy here, we should not think of Karnataka government, Maharashtra government. It's Indian government or any state government. Okay. State policy. Directive principles of state policy. It means when state is making any kind of policy, it is central government or state government. Policy means, let's assume it is making some kind of law. Okay. Law. So while making laws, it should keep some things in its mind. It should keep some things in its mind. Okay, so those things have been listed from article number 36 to article number 51. Means whenever central government or state government is bringing any kind of policies, it should keep these things in mind and then make the policies. Okay, it should keep these things in mind and then make the policies. So in this article number 36 to 51, there are so many provisions. For example, there is one provision: equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Okay, from article number 36 to 51, there are many DPSPs, but I just taken randomly one DPSP. What does it say? Equal pay for equal work for both men and women. If a man works from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., if he gets 500 rupees salary, then woman who works from 10 a.m. to 5 a.m., she should also get 500 rupees salary. Equal pay for equal work for both men and women. So don't go what practically. These are all theoretical, because when it comes to practical realities, in organized sector, this is true. For example, if someone has joined a government institute, for example, a male has become an IAS officer and a female has become an IAS officer, whether salary will be different, both of them will get equal salary. If you go to corporate sector, for example TCS or Infosys, even though it's a private sector, so both men and women will get equal salary. But in unorganized sector, for example, if you take rural areas, so in rural areas there is a salary difference. If a male member works from 10 to 5, if he gets 500 rupees, then a female member, even if she contributes similarly, she'll get around 300 to 350. Okay, salary difference exists. So that's why I'm saying practically in every sector you cannot contribute. But theoretically, what does the DPSP say? Whenever state government is making any kind of law, it has to keep this in mind. Means before giving a permission to a factory, government should say that we'll give you permission only if you pay equally for both men and women. Okay. So DPSP means these things the government should keep in mind while making laws and regulations. Okay, laws and regulations. One such DPSP is equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Now, by doing this, what you are doing? Whether you are providing justice, justice to which community? To women. Okay, you are giving justice to women. Similarly, when you provide reservation for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or OBC, or physically challenged, are you giving justice? Yes, because scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, or what physically challenged, they might have faced some problems in their life. So in order to uplift them, in order to bring them into the mainstream, you are giving some extra facilities. So whatever the extra facilities you are giving, that's an example of a justice. So what kind of justice? It's an example of social justice. That is an example of social justice. Again, the same example can also become an example of economic justice as well. There is a very thin line between social justice and economic justice. Okay, so initially they may confuse us. Okay, so there are some examples which will fit commonly into both social justice and economic justice. For a time being, to make our understanding easier, what we shall do is, reservation is an example of social justice. Let's assume that reservation is an example of a social justice. An example of economic justice. So when you pay equally for both men and women, okay, that is an example of economic justice. Okay, economic justice. Just we want the differentiation, right? We want an example of political justice. Okay, political justice. So political justice, for example, now to become a member of Lok Sabha, if you take Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, if there is no provision of reservation, then the chances of a scheduled caste member becoming a member of Lok Sabha are very meager, very rare. The chances of a scheduled tribe member becoming a member of Lok Sabha are very rare. So hence we have made a provision of reservation. So some constituencies are reserved constituencies, so that the representatives of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe are represented in parliament. Similarly, when it comes to Panchayat Raj, we have not yet started discussing the concept of Panchayat Raj system. In Panchayat Raj system also, there is a reservation for women, there is a reservation for scheduled caste, there is a reservation for scheduled tribe. So all of them, they give what kind of power to you? They give you social power, economic power, or political power? They give you political power. So the same reservation, for example, I will take in education, is an example of social justice. Reservation in education is an example of social justice. Reservation in to become member of Lok Sabha, okay, is an example of what? Political justice. Okay. To just begin with, at least we need to have an understanding with the help of an example. What is the difference between social justice, economic justice, and political justice? Example of social justice: reservation in education. Example of economic justice: equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Example of political justice: reservation for scheduled caste or scheduled tribe in Lok Sabha and Panchayat Raj. It's an example of political justice. Okay, political justice. So our constitution, it tries to secure the justice through various ways. Okay, through various ways. One way is through directive principles of state policy. Okay, state policy. Another way is through fundamental rights. So we'll be discussing fundamental rights in detail. Article number 12 to article number 35. Okay, article number 35. For example, in fundamental rights, there are various rights. Okay, right to equality, right against exploitation. There are various rights. So there is one right is abolition of untouchability. Abolition of untouchability. So this is one fundamental right. So previously there was a practice that people belonging to some community, so the higher caste people, they never used to mingle with them. They were not used to touch them. So that was a practice of untouchability. So presently we have abolished the practice of untouchability. When you abolish the practice of untouchability, you are giving a type of justice. What kind of justice you are giving? You are giving economic justice or political justice or social justice? Social justice. It means we understand that by using some provisions of directive principles of state policy, we provide some justice, and by using the provisions of fundamental rights, we will give few other justices. Once we complete the discussion of directive principles of state policy and fundamental rights, then we have a clear idea that which all kind of justice we have provided through which all means. Okay, through which all means. But at least for time being, we understood the difference between social justice, economic justice, and political justice. Okay, political justice. And how we are trying to secure them? How we are trying to secure them? Through fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Okay, state policy. Okay. So social justice, equal treatment of all citizens without any social distinction based on caste, color, race, region, sex, and so on. When you treat all the people equally, okay, equally without discriminating on the basis of caste, without discriminating on the basis of their color, okay, race, region, okay, sex, that is male or female. So this is called as what? This is an example of social justice. So in the examination, they may frame such statements, but they are never framed. Okay. For example, equal treatment of all citizens without any discrimination based on caste, sex, religion. So this indicates what kind of justice? Social justice. Okay, social justice. Absence of privileges being extended to any particular section of society. Okay, absence of privileges being extended to any particular section of society. For example, I shall take the opposite thing. Now only people belonging to some caste, they are allowed to enter a temple. Let's assume people will not take any particular caste name. Okay, people belonging to some caste are allowed to enter a temple, but people belonging to some other caste, let's assume caste 1, they can enter a temple, yes. Caste 2, these people cannot enter a temple. So it means, what does it mean? Whether privileges is being extended to a particular section of society? Yes, privilege is being extended to one particular section of society. To which caste you are extending the privilege? For caste 1, you are extending the privilege. For caste 2, you are denying the same. Okay, denying the same. So whether such kind of system exists in India? Okay, practically there may be some incidents. Okay, we should just forget about those rare events. But in our constitution, there is no such provision. Okay, whether a person belonging to caste 1 or caste 2, all of them are free to enter the temple. So this indicates absence of privileges. So whether there are privileges present in India? No, absence of privileges. Now don't think too deeply, sir. When a prime minister comes, so easily they'll make an what option for him to enter the temple, but common man like us, we have to stand hours together. So that is different. Okay, so here when two people they stand at the same position, then there should be no discrimination. Okay, no discrimination. So absence of privileges being extended to any class, particular section of society is also an example of what? Social justice. Now some points will start confusing. Why they will confuse? Previously we have seen republic. In republic what we saw? Absence of privileged what? Privileged class. Okay, privileged class. So only some political offices can be held only by particular caste or all. Was there such kind of provision? So here slightly we may get confused. Okay, so that is different and slightly it is different. So absence of privileged class points to which word in the preamble? Absence of privileged class, it points to republic. Absence of privileges being extended to a particular section of society indicates what? It indicates justice. What kind of justice? Social justice. Okay, I'm just framing the sentences so that you should be able to overcome the confusion between republic and justice. Within justice, social justice. Okay, social justice. So as I mentioned, improvement in the conditions of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBC and women. So to improve the condition of scheduled caste, to improve the condition of scheduled tribe, OBCs and what? Women, some special provisions will be made. For example, some seats in the KSRTC bus will be reserved for women. Okay, some seats in the Panchayat Raj are reserved for women. Okay, there is some reservation made for women in the education, in the employment. Similarly for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC. So all these are examples of what? Justice. Which justice? Social justice. Okay, social justice. So when I say social justice, all these things you should be able to recall. Here exact memorization is not required. You are not supposed to memorize these things, but that understanding is important. Okay, understanding is important. Okay, so in the examination they may ask improvement in the condition of SC, ST, women and OBC is an example of economic justice or social justice? Social justice. Okay, social justice. Next, economic justice. Now there will be some examples where we cannot draw a clear line that this is an example of economic justice and this is an example of social justice, because both have an overlapping. Okay, and don't try to find out such a kind of example. Okay, examples also wherever possible I'll try to mention. So economic justice, non-discrimination between people on the basis of economic factors. Okay, so one person is poor, one person is rich, so based upon that you will not discriminate. Okay, you are rich person, you come, so you are poor, so you come next. So that is a what? Discrimination based not on caste, religion, it's based on economic factors. Okay, so economic justice indicates non-discrimination between people on the basis of Economic factors. Okay, economic factors. Now again, don't think too much. So when you go to Tirupati, those who pay 300 rupees, they will get darshan within 2 hours. Those who don't have 300 rupees, they have to wait for 24 hours. Okay, so whether it compromises with the economic justice, okay, don't go in that fashion. Okay, so here non-discrimination between people on the basis of what? Economic factors. Okay, economic factors. It also involves elimination of glaring inequalities in wealth, income and property. Okay, so glaring means which is very clearly visible. So inequality in wealth, inequality in income, inequality in property. There are people who own thousands of acres. There are people who are landless. Okay, so there are people who have what 100 kgs of gold. There are some people who don't even own 1 gram of gold. Okay. Similarly, income. Some of them get what crores together as an income every month, and there are some people who just live on thousands of rupees. So these inequalities do exist. So government will try to eliminate. Okay, eliminate these inequalities. Can we completely remove them? It's practically impossible, but at least it will make a try. Okay, it will make a try. So whenever government is trying to do these things, it's an example of providing what kind of justice? Economic justice. So as I mentioned, equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Can it be an example of economic justice? Yes, because you are trying to reduce inequality in income between whom? Male and female. Female. So that's an example of providing economic justice. The most famous program, okay, now recently it has been replaced. So previously it was called as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act program, Manarega program. Now they have made it as what? G Ramji program. So Manarega program, what does it do? It gives employment opportunities to people residing in urban area or rural area. Rural area. Minimum how many days of work? 100 days of work. Okay. So what it will do? It will try to minimize inequalities in what? Wealth, income, okay, not property, or wealth and income. So between urban area and rural area, because in urban area there will be a lot of employment opportunities, but in rural area the employment opportunities will be less. So those who are landless laborers, so at least they should get some employment opportunities in the rural areas so that the income inequality is reduced. So this is an example of a program which government provides in order to secure what? Social justice or economic justice? Economic justice. But this economic justice, whatever the government provides, whether it will also have an impact on social justice as well? Yes, it will have an impact on social justice, because when a person starts earning, okay, the other people of the village will start speaking to him, they will start having tea with him. Okay, so all these things will have an repercussion on others as well. So when economic justice is met, automatically it will have an implication on social justice as well. So hence we cannot draw a thin line between economic justice and social justice. But for time being, to make our discussions easier, to bring that clarity, so Manarega is an example of economic justice. Reservation for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and women is an example of social justice. Okay, social justice. Okay, now from exam point of view, so elimination of inequalities in wealth, income and property is achieved through which term in the preamble? Justice. Okay, which justice? Economic justice. Okay, economic justice. Okay. So generally, social justice plus economic justice, both together we call them as distributive justice. Okay. So what is distributive justice? Economic justice plus social justice. Whether the distributive justice term within it includes political justice as well? No, it only includes economic justice plus social justice. Okay, social justice. Next, we discussed social, economic. Next is political justice. All citizens should have equal political rights. So what do we understand by political rights? The right to contest in an election. Can we call it as a political right? Yes. So right to contest in an election is an example of a political right. Okay. So all citizens of India, irrespective of their caste, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their gender, whether they are eligible to what contest in the election. Yes, there is an example of what kind of justice? Political justice. Now all citizens of this country have the right to vote. Can it be called as an example of a political justice? Okay. Politics does not mean that you have to participate, you have to contest in the election. Politics means voting in the election as well. Okay, so hence this is very important. So we have misunderstood when we say what we are participating in politics. So when generally some questions are asked to a youth, so whether you are interested to participate in politics, they will say no, because they think that political participation means they have to contest for MLA election, they have to contest for what, MP election. No, political participation means when you go and vote in the election, that is also an example of political participation. Okay, very important. So whether all of us should we participate in this political process or not, you have to participate, because in the 4th century or 3rd century BC, a Western philosopher has very famously quoted Aristotle. Okay, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics. Okay, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is you will end up being governed by your inferiors. So generally we want to be ruled by whom? By our superiors or by inferiors? Obviously we want to be ruled by our superiors. Because of our lack of political participation, at some point of time, okay, we are being ruled by our inferiors. Why? When you look at some of the MLAs or some of the MPs who can't even speak, forget about speaking, he can't even read the document. So such people have become MLAs, such people have become MPs, and we are being ruled by them. Okay, so educated society, there are so many degrees for so many postgraduates, so many of them are holding what, PhDs as well, but still when it comes to voting, many of them will skip the voting. On that day they will go to a tour. Okay, so they try to have some kind of leisure activities, but that is not correct. So being educated, so political participation is not contesting in an election alone. No doubt you can contest an election, but making a proper choice and participating in that voting exercise is also called as political participation. Okay, political participation. So next time when we exercise our vote, okay, we should not get influenced by our parents, we should not get influenced by our caste, we should not get influenced by our religion. Okay, so it should be beyond that. So being educated, when we are going for a voting process, so at least the person who is voting or who is being elected, at least he should have the basic idea to read a document. This document belongs to which ministry? It belongs to Home Ministry, Health Ministry, Education Ministry. That basic information you need to have. If you want someone elected representative to construct a road for you, okay, at least you need to know that to which particular department we have to forward this letter. So without having this basic knowledge, if such a person, if you elect also, okay, there is of no use. Okay, hence political participation is very important. So every time when you are going for the voting, you have to recall these words. What are the words? One of the penalties, okay, the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is you will end up being governed by your inferiors. Now the choice is yours, whether you want to be governed by your inferiors or superiors. Okay, so hence here political participation also indicates what? Voting. Okay, voting power also comes under what? Political participation. So when we say political rights, so whether all people in this country, citizens, have the right to vote, or is there discrimination based on caste, religion or something? No. So it means in India we also provided political justice as well. Okay, political justice as well. Access to all political offices. Anyone can become PM, anyone can become president and so on, because all these are political offices. Okay, political offices. Voice in government. Okay, so we have voice in government means if a person becomes a member of Lok Sabha, then our people's voice will be heard in Lok Sabha. So hence political justice means giving facilities to different section of the society in different fields of politics. Okay, field of politics. So political justice. So justice, okay, this term justice, from where we have taken, again these things are very important. Initially we saw that there are some terms which were added to the preamble through some amendment. Through which amendment terms were added? 42nd amendment. Which were the terms? Social, economic and political. Similarly next, then I ask you, which were the ideals borrowed from other country? So the ideal of justice, the thought of justice, social, economic and political, we took it from which country? We took it from Russia, or to be specific, Russian Revolution 1917. Okay, so they have framed such kind of questions. So the ideals of justice we have taken from Russia. Okay, we have taken from Russia. Taken from French Revolution, ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. Very important. Liberty, equality and fraternity we have taken from French. Justice, social, economic and political we have taken from Russia. Socialistic, secular and integrity we have added through which amendment? 42nd amendment. 42nd amendment. So these exact years are not, but anyhow, you'll return the information. Russian Revolution took place in 1917 and French Revolution 1789 to 1799. Okay. So we completed sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. Next, justice, social, economic, and political. So next we'll start with what? Liberty. Okay, liberty. So liberty means absence of restraints on the activities of individuals. Okay, so whatever activities you are involved, there should be no restrictions. Okay, so that indicates liberty. Okay, that indicates liberty. Again, you should not get confused. So I am free to do anything. Can I scold someone? Can I kick someone? No. So these things, liberty is secured through fundamental rights. Later on we will be discussing about fundamental rights. So whenever we speak about liberty, automatically along with it will come reasonable restrictions as well. Okay, can you criticize the government? Yes, you have that liberty. Okay, can you have a conversation with others? Can you express your opinion to others? Yes. Can you express your opinion in a very aggressive way there so that it hurts the sentiments of others? No. Okay, so your liberty, it has a reasonable restrictions as well. Okay, reasonable restrictions as well. So here what we have to understand is absence of restraints. So in the examination if they ask, so which word in the preamble indicates absence of restraints? Justice, liberty, fraternity, equality. Liberty indicates absence of restraints. There is no restriction. There is no restriction on the activities of individuals. Okay. Next, in one of the examination 2016 or something, they asked about this question. Directly they had asked a question like this: absence of restraints, which word in the preamble indicates it? Okay, liberty. Next year similarly they slightly changed the question and 99% of the aspirants they made that option wrong. Okay, later on while discussing the question paper we shall have the discussion about the same. Very important. Here we saw only one meaning of liberty. There is another meaning of the word liberty. There are multiple meanings, not single meaning. There are multiple meanings. When we discussed about the republic, right? What are the different meanings that we came across? Republic, elected head of the state. One. Next, offices are open. Okay, absence of privileged class. Okay, we saw. Similarly here, liberty, it has multiple meaning. One is absence of restraints. Okay, no restrictions. Second one is at the same time providing opportunities for the development of individual personalities. Providing opportunities for the development of individual personalities. This is another meaning of the same term liberty. But very easily, which thing we can remember? The first one. No restrictions, liberty. Yes, but that is not the only meaning. So providing opportunities for the development of individual personality. For any individual personality to develop, okay, what are the various things that are required? Now some personality is there. So first he should be physically fit. So just if a person is physically fit, we will say that yes, he is a good personality. No, there are some personalities, so physically they are so good looking, but when they start speaking, so such kind of words will come out of their mouth that you will have a very negative impression about that personality. So when we speak about personality, it's not only about the physical, it's also about the attitude and many other things. Okay, attitude and many other things. So here, when it comes to individual personality, it may be physical. It means he or she should be healthy. Next, attitude. So proper attitude can be built when he has been brought in a proper environment. Okay, especially school. So educational is the one field wherein a person's personality will be groomed. So health, education. Okay, I'll just take two parameters. When a person is healthy and when a person has good education, then what we can say that the individual personality has been properly developed. Okay, properly developed. So providing opportunities for the development of individual personalities. So whether government makes any provisions for the healthy development of the children or healthy development of the youth. Example. Yes, midday meal scheme. Okay, so in school what? Midday meal is provided. One. Next, in Anganwadi. Okay, Anganwadi what? Nutritious things are provided. So will these elements help in the individual personality development with respect to what? With respect to health. Next, pulse polio is provided. Okay, again it will improve your health. It will make you a healthy human being. But whether just being healthy will be sufficient? No, you require also proper education. Whether government has made any effort to give you proper education? Example, it has started government schools. It has started government schools to give you education. And the higher education, they have made provisions for reservation and all those things. Just with one or two examples, we should be able to connect this dot. So what we understood? At the same time, providing opportunities for the development of individual personalities. So for development of individual personalities, two important parameters. One is health, another one is education. Okay. So when government is providing these facilities, so what are they upholding? Sovereignty, equality, fraternity, or liberty? Liberty. Okay. So we should be able to connect these points. Okay. We should be able to connect these points. So preamble secures to all citizens liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship through fundamental rights. Okay, so we have not just discussed fundamental rights. After discussing fundamental rights, we will come to know that how liberty of thought is upheld, how liberty of expression and all these things are upheld. So once we complete the discussion of fundamental rights, you will get a clear picture. So whether liberty has been secured through fundamental rights? Yes, okay, liberty has been secured through some sections of fundamental rights, and fundamental rights we will be discussing later on. Okay, later on. Not absolute, but qualified, very important. So when we say liberty, whether it is absolute, absolute means whatever comes to my mind, I will act accordingly. No, it's not possible. Okay, so your liberty will have certain limitations. As I took an example. Okay, when we are having conversation with others, we should take care that our words will not hurt the sentiments of others. If you try to hurt the sentiments of others, it means you are not exercising your liberty properly. You are crossing your boundaries. You should not cross your boundaries. There are certain limitations for it. There are certain limitations for it. Okay, so whether liberty is absolute? No, it is limited. Okay, it is limited. So which are the two different meanings of the words liberty? One is absence of restraints. Another one is providing opportunities for the development of the individual personality. Okay, individual personality. With the help of example, we saw that two here, health and education. Okay, education. See, this health, education, none of these are present in book. Why I am giving you examples is so that you can connect to the topic very closely. Okay, so when you start reading newspaper and all, so whenever you come across any entity, you should be able to connect to which part of the preamble we can connect it, to which part of the constitution we can connect it. In that fashion, when we go on connecting over a period of time, okay, automatically we'll start generating what the structured answers for the mains as well. Okay, structured answers for the mains as well. Equality. Okay, now some things will overlap. Some things will overlap. Means absence of special privileges to any section of society. We saw the same sentence at some other place. Which was that? Apart from it is privileged class. Apart from that, at one other point again we saw. Yes, justice. So both of them will overlap. So in the examination they not confuse you. So which word in the preamble indicates absence of special privileges? Equality or justice? Okay, in that fashion they will not confuse you. Okay, they will not confuse you. Both equality as well as justice, what they will try to promote? They will try to ensure that there are absence of special privileges. Okay, special privileges. So one meaning of the term equality is absence of special privileges to any sections of society. Okay, any section of society. Provision of adequate opportunities for all individuals without any discrimination. Okay, again this will overlap with the previous what? Liberty. Okay, so try to store the information separately. So there are two meanings of the term equality. One is absence of special privileges. Second one is adequate opportunities for all individuals without any discrimination. So in the liberty, what we saw? Development of individual personalities. Here, equal opportunities without any discrimination. Okay, without any discrimination. And initially, it may cause confusion also. If you are getting stuck for time being, you skip there itself. We will move to the next part. Okay, gradually you will understand all these things. Next, it also means equality of status and opportunity. Okay, opportunity. So when we say embraces three dimensions of equality. So political equality, economic equality, and civic equality. So for time being, okay, we'll not go into these aspects. We already know about political equality, economic equality. So if all of them get equal salary, it's an example of what economic equality. If all of them get political rights, it's an example of what? Political equality. Okay, political equality. Okay, so civic means day-to-day activities. So in day-to-day activities, how fundamental rights ensure that equality, Okay, so again, these articles we'll be discussing in detail. Article number 14, article number 15, article number 16, article number 17, article number 18. So these articles we'll be discussing in detail during the discussion of fundamental rights. Just at a superficial level, so article number 14 says equality before law. But it's just one single line I have used, but actually when we start discussing, it is bit lengthy. At that time we'll discuss in detail. Article number 15, discrimination, prohibition of discrimination. Article number 16, equality of opportunity in public employment. 17, abolition of untouchability, abolition of titles. So in examination they will not ask, but if at all they ask, which of the articles of the fundamental rights help us in upholding civic equality? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, 18. For time being, you will only understand this much. Once we start discussing fundamental rights, you will understand in detail. Okay, detail. Now, just to remember these things, what you can do is, so this discrimination is the right, we will take D. O, we will take O. Next, U. Next, T. Okay, so we will create a mnemonic like this, D-O-U-T, doubt. Okay, D is keyword. What is D? Discrimination. With the help of this discrimination, you should be able to recall the entire sentence. Okay. Prohibition of discrimination. Later on we'll see on grounds of race, religion, caste, sex or place of birth. O, opportunity. Equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. U, untouchability. Abolition of untouchability. T, titles. Abolition of titles. Okay. But anyhow we'll be discussing later on again once we start discussing fundamental rights. For time being we shall understand that which fundamental rights ensure civic equality? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, 18. So provisions to seek political equality. Okay. Provisions to seek political equality. So which article of the Constitution helps us to seek political equality? So what is political equality? No exclusion to electoral rolls. So I think in the previous class while discussing, we came up with a term called electoral roll. What is electoral roll? In any constituency, for example, let's assume Bagalkot constituency, electoral roll consists of a list of people who are eligible to vote. Okay, so person 1, person 2 and so on. So this is a list of voters who can participate in voting. So no exclusion. For example, can I say that you belong to a particular religion, hence I will not add your name to the list? You belong to a particular caste, I will not add your name to the list. You belong to a particular gender, you are a female, I will not allow you to add to this list. Can we say that? No. Okay, no. So no exclusion to the electoral rolls based on religion, race, caste or sex. Okay, so what does it uphold? It upholds what? Equality. Okay, equality. So which kind of equality? Political equality. So which article of the Constitution upholds political equality? Article number 325. Okay. They are never asked, but what I will urge is you just retain this information. Article number 325 of the Constitution, it will help us to uphold which equality? Political equality. Okay, if you look at all the 30 years question papers, they are never asked like this, but still we shall retain. So it will help us to retain political equality. How? No exclusion to electoral rolls based on race, religion, caste or sex. Okay, caste or sex. Article number 326 says Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly elections on adult franchise. So it is Lok Sabha election or MLA election, it will be based on universal adult franchise. Those who are above the 18 years of age, they can vote irrespective of their caste, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their gender. Okay, irrespective of their gender. So just retain these two information. So political equality, which article? 325 and 326. Next, provision to seek economic equality. So previously I discussed, right? Article number 39 I had not mentioned. Okay, but secures to men and women equal right, adequate means of livelihood, equal pay for equal work. So these things we have discussed. Okay, again in detail every article we shall discuss from 36 to 51. But if I ask you, can you give me an example of an article which secures political equality? Article number 325 and 326, which secures political equality. Can you give me an article number which secures economic justice? 39. Okay, one example of that. Equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Okay, men and women. Next, fraternity. Fraternity means a sense of brotherhood. Okay, so all Indians, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the caste, so we are all like brothers and sisters. So that sense of brotherhood we need to build. Okay, we need to build. Promotes this through system of single citizenship. Very important. In India, how this sense of brotherhood is created. Okay, one is emotional, one is different, but through constitution, what? Through single citizenship. So what does it mean? In India, we cannot have dual citizenship. For example, in some other country, for example USA, so once we start discussing about a topic called as citizenship, in USA there are two types of citizenship. One is country citizenship, another one is state citizenship. For example, for entire India, one citizenship. For Karnataka, I will have another citizenship. Okay, that kind of concept exists in USA. But in India, whether you are a Kannadiga, or whether you are Tamilian, or whether you are of a Punjabi, okay, you have only one citizenship identity. So that single citizenship, it will build a sense of brotherhood. So in the examination, if they ask which provision in the constitution promotes fraternity, single citizenship. Okay, single citizenship is one of the provision which promotes brotherhood. Okay, which promotes brotherhood. So it creates that I am not a Tamilian, I am not Kannadiga, so we are all Indians. That sense of brotherhood is created by a provision in the constitution, and that one provision is single citizenship. Okay, single citizenship. Fundamental duties. Fundamental duties to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. Okay. Now next, tomorrow I want to give you a work. Already you have memorized the preamble. All of you have memorized preamble. So next, in similar fashion, I want you to memorize the fundamental duties. I want you to memorize fundamental duties. Okay. So the first fundamental duty, what does it say? Anyone can recall? Yes, you are right. To abide by the constitution, correct?
And to respect national flag and nation.
Okay. To abide by the constitution and respect its national flag, national anthem, and to abide by the constitution, respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and national anthem. Okay. Next, second one. To cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our freedom struggle. Okay. In that fashion, there are 11 what fundamental duties. By tomorrow's class, I expect you to what? Memorize the fundamental duties. Okay. Very important. Apart from preamble, we also require memorization when it comes to fundamental duties. Whether you understand those terms or not, that is secondary. Later on we will be discussing in the class. But first thing, I want you to memorize the fundamental duties. Okay, fundamental duties. Among the fundamental duties, one fundamental duty is to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood among all its citizens, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities, and to renounce practices derogatory to dignity of women. Okay, the fifth fundamental duty. Okay, so once you go through the fundamental duty, you will understand. So, to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. So what is harmony? So no one should fight with one another. So you are a Hindu, you are a Muslim, so fighting against one another. So when you do this, that harmony will be spoiled. So what you should do is, you should try to promote harmony between the communities. Okay, harmony between the communities and spirit of common brotherhood. So we all are like brothers. So this kind of sense we have to create. Now we got to know that one provision in the constitution which promotes brotherhood is single citizenship. Can you recall another provision which promotes brotherhood? Fundamental duty, promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. It means there are various provisions in the constitution which promote brotherhood. Now we are aware of two things. One is single citizenship, another one is one of the fundamental duty which promotes harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. Common brotherhood. It should assure two things: dignity of individuals and unity and integrity of nation. Okay, so we have seen, right, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity. What kind of fraternity? Assuring the dignity of the individual, unity and integrity of the nation. Okay, just for the sake of brotherhood, okay, you cannot spoil the dignity of an individual. Okay, for example, someone does not want to enter your temple because his religion is different. You will just start blackmailing him. Okay, only if you enter our temple, then we will consider you as our brother. Then what happens? That individual dignity will be lost. Okay, similarly, some of their festivals, okay, or their dietary habits. So you are not interested to have, let's assume, non-veg. Someone will force you, only if you have non-veg in your home, then I am going to consider you as my brother. Okay, that what happens? It will, the dignity of the individual will be lost. So when you are trying to promote this brotherhood, this should not happen. You should uphold the dignity of the individual. At the same time, you should also build unity and integrity of the nation. Okay, just with one simple example, I am trying to connect the things so that you will understand what do we understand by upholding the individual dignity. Okay, individual dignity. So fraternity, what kind of fraternity? Assuring the dignity of the individual, and at the same time, what? Upholding the unity and integrity of the nation. Okay, of the nation. Dignity of Constitution not only ensures material betterment and maintain democratic setup, also recognizes that personality of the every individual is sacred, highlighted through some provisions of fundamental rights. Not important, just leave it. Okay, so unnecessarily again you will get confused, you just leave it. Okay, otherwise we just focus on these terms. Whether when we say dignity of the individual, whether it only focuses on material betterment? No. A person should have all the resources. Okay, he should become rich. Okay, not that in sense. Not only in that sense. Not only ensures material betterment, but also recognizes that personality of every individual is sacred. Okay, sacred. For example, just to build brotherhood, if you force someone to convert to our religion, so if you convert to our religion, then both of us we can become brothers. If you convert to our religion, then we'll give you money, we'll give you job. Okay, so with that what happens? Material betterment will take place, but that individual dignity might get lost. He might be interested to continue in his own religion, but he has converted because he wants that material betterment. So hence both should be balanced. So you should not only focus on material betterment, but you should also take care that personality of every individual is sacred. Okay, every individual is sacred. Okay, if you are getting confused also, don't worry much about this point. For time being, you can just ignore it. So later on we will see how this is upheld by fundamental rights and DPSP. Okay. Now the same fundamental duty itself, we have one fundamental duty which says that renounce practices derogatory to dignity of women. So we have to stop using practices which are what? Derogatory, which are against the dignity of a woman. Can you give me an example which goes against the dignity of a woman? So previously there existed a system called sati system. It was abolished. Okay. Even today, dowry. Okay, dowry is a system which goes against the dignity of the woman. So similarly, so a system of triple talaq was abolished. Okay, it went against the dignity of the woman. Okay, woman. So we have to renounce practices which are derogatory to dignity of woman. Okay, dignity of woman. So now what we are discussing? Assuring the fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the nation. So about that dignity we are discussing. Okay, so to uphold that dignity, which are the various provisions present? So is there any provision in the fundamental right which upholds the dignity? Yes. Is there any provision in the fundamental duty that upholds the dignity? Yes. In fundamental duty we have that renouncing practices derogatory to dignity of a woman. So this is one example which helps us to uphold the dignity of the woman. Okay, woman. But now again complete picture will not get. Once we discuss fundamental duties, fundamental rights, then a clear picture will emerge. Okay, clear picture emerge. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Okay. So what is unity and integrity of the nation? Okay. So generally these things will confuse because we will try to mark an exact difference between unity and integrity. Okay. For time being, you assume that both of them are same. If you assume that both of them are same, then your learning will become easier. Otherwise, unnecessarily it will complicate your learning and you will get confused and you will be stuck here itself. Okay, you will be stuck here itself. So unity and integrity of the nation embraces both psychological and territorial dimensions. of the national integration. So when I say unity and integrity of the nation, it does not just focus on psychological aspects. So when we say psychological aspects, all of us, we are like brothers and sisters. Okay, this is psychological integrity, psychological unity. But when we say that no part of the India can be taken by someone else forcefully, that means territorial integrity. Means always we'll try to ensure that none of the foreigners will take our territory forcefully from us. Okay, forcefully from us. So here, from the exam point of view, if they say unity and integrity term in the preamble, it focuses only on the psychological dimension, or also it focuses on the territorial dimension as well. It focuses on both psychological dimension as well as territorial dimension. Okay, territorial dimension. So article number 1. So next we will be discussing about a topic called as Union and its territories. Okay, Union and its territories. So article number 1 to 4 deal with it. Okay, deal with it. We will be discussing later on. But article 1, it says Union of States. But now you will not completely understand. No right to secede from the Union. Indestructible nature of Union. Okay, so what does it mean? At a superficial level, I will just conclude. Now in India, I just place one statement. Whether a state can be destroyed in India? Okay, India is a union of states. All the states together we form India. Okay, can a state be destroyed? Destroyed means, can we split the state and make it as 2 states? Okay, example, Andhra Pradesh in 2014, Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana were created. So it means a state can be destroyed. Okay, a state can be destroyed. Can India's union be destroyed? Okay, that is what we has been given here. Indestructible nature of the union. It means within Karnataka you can split 10 states, not an issue. But whatever this boundary, this India is the right, it cannot be broken. For example, Jammu and Kashmir, some people will say, we want independence, we want to create our own country. Northeast, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, some people will say, we want our own country, so please give us a separate country. Okay, that is not possible. So whether India is a indestructible union? Yes. Destructible states? Yes. So generally we call India as a indestructible union of destructible states. Okay, indestructible union of destructible states. But these concepts we will learn in deep when we start discussing about a topic called as Union and its territories. Okay, Union and its territories. So there we will discuss in detail. For example, article 1 number 1 says that India, that is Bharat. In constitution there are 2 terms which are used to refer to our country. One is India, another one is Bharat. Whether the term Hindustan is present in the constitution? No, there are only 2 words. One is India, another one is Bharat. Where they are present? Article number 1. Okay, article number 1. So again we will be discussing it later on. So here what we have to understand here is, these things indicate what? Unity and integrity of the nation. So article number 1, indestructible union, what does it indicate? To which word of the preamble it points to? Unity and integrity of the nation. Okay, unity and integrity of the nation. From that point of view we shall try to. Okay. So this unity and integrity aims at overcoming hindrances to the national integration like. So for India's unity and for India's integrity, there are certain problems, okay, there are certain concerns. Okay, so they become a stumbling block, they become a hindrance for national integrity. What are they? Communalism. Okay, fights based on religion, Hindu, Muslim. Okay, so whether this is a threat to national integrity and unity? Yes. Okay, so this term, unity and integrity of the nation, it tries to overcome the problem of communalism. Tries to overcome the problem of communalism. Next, regionalism. I am a Marathiga, I am a Kannadiga, I am a Tamilian. Okay, so this unity and integrity, this term, it tries to overcome this problem. Okay, so aims at overcoming hindrances to national integration. So these are the problems which become our hindrance, stumbling block to national integration. So hence the term unity and integrity, it tries to overcome these things. Okay, tries to overcome these things. Casteism. Okay, so caste based discrimination also, it leads to what? It goes against the integrity. So the unity and integrity is, it tries to overcome the problem of casteism as well. Okay, next, linguism. What is linguism? Based on languages. Okay, so again language will become a barrier to national integrity. Okay, I will not mingle with you because you are a Kannadiga, I am a Tamilian. Okay, I am a Marathiga. So again this unity and integrity, it tries to overcome the problem of linguism as well. And next, secessionism means some part of the country they want to break and form a separate country. Okay, there are many such demands in India. For example, in Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast. Okay, Northeast. So this unity and integrity term, it also tries to overcome such tendencies in the country as well. Okay, such tendencies in the country as well. Okay, now in the examination, if they ask a question, what kind of question they may focus? So which word in the preamble tries to overcome the problem of communalism, regionalism, casteism, etc. Unity and integrity. Okay, the term unity and integrity, they try to overcome the problem of communism, regionalism, casteism, and so on. Okay, and so on. Okay, so now we have completed the discussion of all the terms. Have we completed? We completed sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic, justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, fraternity. We discussed. Unity of the individual, dignity of the individual, unity and integrity of the nation. Okay, so almost all the terms we have discussed, and in one go you will not understand. Gradually, as we go on connecting the different parts of the constitution, okay, the understanding of these terms will definitely increase. Okay, will definitely increase. Significance of the preamble. Okay, now some things which we discuss here are not that important. So members of the Constituent Assembly, speaking about its importance. Now, Constituent Assembly, there are approximately around 300 plus members. Now, in the examination, sometimes they asked a question as well. Who among the following were members of Constituent Assembly? So, what will be our approach? Should we memorize all the 300 plus names? Okay. So, practically it is not possible. Okay. Initially, with enthusiasm, we may start, but we will not be able to complete. On that day, I told you, right, when it comes to 7th schedule list, union list, state list, concurrent list. In union list, there are more than 90 subjects. In state list, there are approximately 60 subjects. Similarly, concurrent list. So, in the initial days of my preparation, when I was not aware, I tried to memorize the list. But later on, I understood that that exercise was futile. It's of no use. Okay, it's of no use. Similarly, here, memorizing all the names of all the Constituent Assembly members is practically not feasible. Okay, practically not feasible. Then what will be the approach? Whichever names we encounter during our discussion, we'll only retain those names. From here we got to know that Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, K.M. Munshi, Pandit Thakur Das Bhargava. So all were Constituent Assembly members. So rather than memorizing all the 300 plus, we shall start with 3 members. Okay. So these 3 members were part of the list. Okay. Part of the Constituent Assembly. Okay. Part of the Constituent Assembly. So these people, they spoke the importance of preamble. They said that preamble is important, but what they said, exactly what they said, is not important. Okay, something they spoke positively about the India's preamble. Okay, preamble. Others speaking about its importance means these 2 people, they are not members of Constituent Assembly. They are not members of Constituent Assembly, but yet they spoke positively about the preamble. Who are they? Sir Ernest Barker, M. Hidayatullah. Both of them, they spoke about the preamble. From this we understood that Hidayatullah was not part of the Constituent Assembly. Okay, Constituent Assembly. So from Prelims point of view, if they frame a question, who among the following were members of Constituent Assembly? Option number 1, 2, 3, 4. How many of them were members? Only 3. Who are they? Alladi Krishna Iyer, K.M. Munshi, Thakur Das Bhargava. In that sense, you will remember. Okay. Preamble is part of the Constitution. Now, this is very important, especially for the starters to understand. So, many aspirants over the years, they fail to crack the examination because they fail to understand the demand of the examination. Okay. So, generally what happens in many of the institutes, they will club the mains and prelims parts together. A student will not be able to segregate what information is important from prelims point of view, what information is important from mains point of view. So, his approach will be integrated. Okay. In this integrated approach, when we move, we will not be able to confidently mark the prelims questions. Hence, during our preparation phase itself, we need to clearly understand what is important for prelims and what is important for mains and what is common for both prelims and mains. Okay, what is common for prelims and mains. Now, during our discussion, not only in this topic, in the subsequent topics, we come across many Supreme Court judgments. Okay, Supreme Court judgments. So, you need to have a very clear idea that Supreme Court judgments are not important from prelims point of view. Okay, but Supreme Court judgments have an important role to play in our mains answers. Okay, in our mains answers. So this you have to clearly understand, because at the time of examination, you need to prioritize whether I have to focus on this part or not. in a shorter span of time. In case of prelims, we have to revise a huge content. So while revising the huge content, you have to prioritize, and that prioritization cannot begin at the time of examination. So that prioritization has to start from now itself. Okay, when we go for a revision in the month of February or March, we need to have a clear priority that this content is important for prelims and this content is important for mains. Okay, mains. Now next year, Beruberi Union case. So whenever Supreme Court gives any judgment, it will be a judgment based on a case. Again, we will be discussing in detail when we start discussing about Supreme Court and all. So Supreme Court in a case called as Beruberi Union case. So what is that Beruberi Union case? What is its background? You need not understand. You need not understand. So this judgment was given in 1960. Okay, 1960. So Supreme Court, it opined that its opinion was that preamble is not part of the Constitution. In Beruberi Union case, someone filed a case. Okay, they said that preamble should not be part of the Constitution. So Supreme Court studied and it gave a judgment. It said that preamble is not part of the Constitution. Now whatever the Supreme Court judgment it gives, that will be final. Okay, that will be final. So if Supreme Court has given a judgment, it is final, but that judgment can be reversed. It can be changed. By whom? Again, the Supreme Court itself. Okay, there is a rule. For example, in Supreme Court, that we call them as benches. Okay, single member bench, 3-member benches, 5-member benches and all. If a single judge is involved, single judge bench. If 3 judges are involved, 3 judge bench, 5 judge bench and so on. If 3 people sit and give this judgment in Beruberi Union case, in order to reverse this judgment, in order to change this judgment, the next judgment should be given by minimum how many members? 5 members. Okay. So in Beruberi case, if 3 members have said that preamble is not part of the Constitution, and the next Supreme Court judgment it wants to say that preamble is part of the Constitution, means whatever has been said in Beruberi case, that has to be reversed. So in order to reverse this, to give the next judgment, how many people are required? 5 members are required. So this is how the Supreme Court works. Okay, again we will be discussing about it once we start discussing about the judiciary. Okay, judiciary. So in examination, see what we get confused is, will they ask a question like this? In which particular judgment Supreme Court said that preamble is not part of the Constitution? Which judgment? Beruberi case. Okay, but these kind of questions will not be framed in prelims. While writing mains answers, you have to write, in Beruberi case, Supreme Court said that preamble is not part of the Constitution. Okay, not part of the Constitution. Next, Keshwanand Bharati case. Supreme Court held that it is part of the Constitution. In 1960, Supreme Court in Beruberi case said that it is not part of the Constitution. The same Supreme Court in 1973, it said that it is part of the Constitution. So which one we have to accept? The old one or the new one? Always we have to accept the new one, because the new one, this judgment has been given by more number of judges as compared to the previous judgment. Okay, previous judgment. So presently then what we have to consider? Whether preamble is part of the Constitution or not part of the Constitution? It is part of the Constitution. As per the Keshwanand Bharati case, preamble is part of the Constitution. Okay, part of the Constitution. Next, there is one more case called as LIC of India case. What was that case? Again, we shall not think of it. So Supreme Court again held that it is integral part of the Constitution. Whatever was said in Keshwanand Bharati case, the same thing it reiterated in LIC case. What it said? Yes, preamble is part of the Constitution. So for us, LIC is important or Keshwanand Bharati is important? Keshwanand Bharati is important, because first time in Keshwanand Bharati case, Supreme Court said that it is part of the Constitution. So LIC not that important. Okay, it just said the same thing, hence not important. Okay. So now we saw 3 cases. Which are the 3 cases? Beruberi case, Keshwanand Bharati case, LIC case. Among these 3, which is important? Keshwanand Bharati. In Keshwanand Bharati, what was declared? Preamble is part of the Constitution. So in the examination, if they ask you whether preamble is part of the Constitution, yes, only they will ask this question. They will not ask you through which judgment. Okay, we have to understand that preamble is part of the Constitution. Next, this is very important. 2 things to be noted. It is neither a source of power to legislature nor a prohibition upon the powers of the legislature. Very important. Okay, neither a source of power to the legislature, neither a limitation on the powers of the legislature. What does it mean? So we shall take the example of legislature, means I will take Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Okay. So now there is a term called as social. There is a term called as secular. This term called as social. This term called as secular. Now Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha or Parliament, it wants to bring a act called as Indian Secularism Act 2026. Lok Sabha tries to introduce a bill called as Indian Secularism Bill 2026. So it can be passed in Lok Sabha, it can be passed in Raj Sabha, then President will sign it and it will become an act. It will become an act. Now someone asks a question to Parliament. Why did you bring this law called as Indian Secularism Act? How did you bring this? Who gave you this power? Then they will say, yes, we got this power because the word secularism is present in the preamble. So using that power, we have made the law. Okay. So we need to understand, using the powers of the preamble, can legislature make a law? It is neither a source of power. So preamble cannot be a source of power to make law. Then when can Parliament make a law? Parliament can make law only based on the 7th schedule, union list or concurrent list. Okay, concurrent list. So what we can say is 7th schedule of the constitution, especially union list subject and concurrent list, they can be a source of power to what? Legislature, to make laws. Preamble cannot be a source of power. So hence it's neither a source of power to legislature. So based on the word present in the preamble, Parliament cannot make law. Cannot make law. Neither a prohibition upon the powers of legislature. Okay, powers of legislature. Let's assume in union list there is a subject called as banking. So banking is the union list subject. So while doing banking, while making a law called as Indian Banking Act 2026. Okay. So let's assume they'll make a provision. There are many rules, rule 1, rule 2, rule 3. They'll say that people belonging to some religion cannot open bank accounts. Okay, just it's an imaginary example. Okay. So there is a rule saying that people belonging to some religion cannot open bank accounts. So someone says, okay, so someone says you cannot do it. You cannot do it because there is a term called secularism. What does secularism say? Without any discrimination on based on caste and religion and all. But here you are discriminating based on religion. Okay, based on religion. Can someone come and say that you cannot make this law because preamble says it? No, you cannot. It cannot become a restriction, prohibition. Preamble cannot become a prohibition upon the powers of the legislature. Then who can provide that restriction? Someone else. For example, fundamental rights. Fundamental rights will say that you cannot discrimination, prohibition of discrimination on grounds of race, religion, caste, sex or place of birth. Means someone who wants to file a case in the court, someone wants to file a case in the Supreme Court against government. What does he want to say? He wants to say that government is bringing a law which is discriminating based on religion. Someone is filing a case in the Supreme Court saying that government is bringing a law which is trying to discriminate based on religion. But when he is giving the excuse, what excuse he can give? He cannot say that it is violating preamble. Okay, he cannot say that it is violating preamble, but he can say that it is violating fundamental rights. It is violating fundamental rights. From this, what we understand is preamble is neither a source of authority like 7th schedule. Similarly, preamble is not a prohibition like fundamental rights. Okay, fundamental rights. So what things we have to understand here? Whether preamble is part of the constitution? Yes. Through the judgment. Keshwanand Bharti case. Whether preamble acts as a source of authority for the legislature? No. Whether preamble acts as a prohibition on the whether preamble prohibits the powers of the legislature? No. Okay, no. It is non-justiciable. Very important. Provisions non-enforceable in courts of law. Okay. For example, there is a term called as secular. If secularism is not implemented in India, no one can go and file a case in the court saying that secularism is not being implemented in India. So this justiciable and non-justiciable, these terms are very important. Justiciable, non-justiciable. Okay. Means If something is not implemented, if you can go and file a case in the court, then we call it as justiciable. If you do not have the right to file a case in the court, it is called as non-justiciable. So among the important entities in India, the only justiciable part is fundamental rights. Fundamental rights. Okay. Non-justiciable. Preamble is non-justiciable. Directive principles of state policy is non-justiciable. Fundamental duties is non-justiciable. So what does it mean? So fundamental right, for example, one article of the fundamental right says that no discrimination on grounds of race, religion, caste, sex or place of birth. You should not discriminate based on religion. And if someone tries to discriminate based on the religion, what you can do? You can go and file a case in the court saying that your fundamental right is being violated. Okay. So that's why we say fundamental right is what? Justiciable. Because when your fundamental right gets violated, you can file a case in the court of law. Now, preamble is not justiciable. For example, there is a term in the preamble called is unity and integrity. Okay. So if someone let's make a political speech where he will try to divide the unity. You cannot file a case against him in the court of law saying that preamble is being violated, because preamble is non-enforceable. Preamble is non-enforceable. Similarly, DPSP. Can you just recall one DPSP that we discussed? Equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Men and women. Now government will make a law saying that in corporate companies, male has to be paid 1,000 rupees per day, female has to be paid 500 rupees per day. They'll make a law. Okay. So, but what does DPSP say? Equal pay. Now, can someone go and file a case in the court saying that government is not implementing the DPSP properly? Can he file a case? No. Why? It's non-justiciable. Okay, it's non-justiciable. Okay. So, generally they will keep it in mind, but it is not necessary because it is non-justiciable. Similarly, fundamental duties. One of the fundamental duties says that to respect national flag. National flag you have to respect. Supposedly, or national anthem you have to respect. Someone is national anthem is being played and you are standing and some others are sitting. Okay, so you will have a discussion over them. Okay, so can you file a case against that person in the court of law saying that he is not following the fundamental duty? No. Okay, no, because fundamental duties are non-justiciable. So next the question arises. It means in India, if a person does not respect the national flag, so there is no punishment for him. It is there, but not as part of the fundamental duty. There is a separate law for it. Okay, based on that law you can punish him, but just based on fundamental duty you cannot file a case. Okay, file a case. Now for time being we shall understand that there are two entities. One is justiciable, another one is non-justiciable, and these terms justiciable and non-justiciable appear in the context of four entities. One is preamble, fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policies. So in which case it is justiciable, in which case it is not justiciable? Fundamental rights, preamble, DPSP, fundamental duties, non-justiciable. Okay, non-justiciable. So with this discussion, so we have concluded with the topic called as preamble. I think one more part is there. Okay, can preamble be amended? Very important. So already we have seen preamble has been amended. How many times? Once. Which was that amendment? 42nd. Which were the terms added? Social, secular and integrity. So in Keshavanand Bharati case, Supreme Court held that it can be amendable under article number 368. Okay. Now don't worry about article number 368. Later on we will be discussing about it. Okay. But it also said that it should not alter the basic structure. Yesterday we saw it. Can we amend the constitution to any required extent? No. So when you are amending the constitution, you have to take care that the basic structure is not altered. So which article of the constitution speaks about the basic structure? Whether the term basic structure is present in the constitution? No, the term basic structure is not present in the constitution. So have they made a list of provisions which are called as basic structure? No, there is no fixed list. The list is evolving. How the list is evolving? Through various Supreme Court judgments. So when was the concept of basic structure first introduced? Through which judgment? Keshavanand Bharati case. Okay, Keshavanand Bharati case. Okay. It was amended in 1976 through 42nd amendment and 3 terms were introduced. social, secular, and integrity. Okay. Here we understood that preamble is non-enforceable or non-justiciable. Whether preamble can be amended, whether to any extent, only to ensure that it will not alter the basic structure. Okay, basic structure. So whether preamble is considered as part of the constitution? Yes, it is considered as part of the constitution. So with this we have concluded a topic called as preamble. Okay. So quickly, can you just give me one example of sovereignty? One example each. Not dependent on other country is an example of sovereignty. Okay. Next, social. Yes. What is social? Democratic socialist. For socialist. What kind of socialism we have? Democratic socialism. Okay. So both private and government can coexist. Yes. Example, next, secularism. Positive or negative? Positive. So in positive concept, whether we extend help to everyone or we will stay neutral? We will help to every religion. Next, sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic. What kind of polity it is? Direct election or indirect election? Indirect. Parliamentary or presidential? Parliamentary. Okay. Next, republic. Okay. Democratic. Next is republic. So can you just tell me two meanings of republic? Head of the state is what? Elected and not hereditary. One more is all political offices open to everyone. Okay. What is liberty mean? Absence of restraints. Another meaning. Individual personalities development. Okay. Example of social justice. Untouchability. Next, economic justice. Equal pay for equal work. Political justice. Reservation for Lok Sabha MP and all. Okay. Next, example of fraternity. The constitutional provisions which upholds fraternity. Okay. Brotherhood. Example. Single citizenship. Okay. Next, unity and integrity. Just involves psychological dimension or territorial dimension as well. Both psychological as well as territorial. So with this we have concluded a topic called as preamble. So once if you have time, I'll urge you to go through the content of Lakshmikant. So then you have clear picture. Okay. So whatever the things we have discussed here, now subsequently when you start discussing newspaper articles and all, you should be able to correlate. Okay. You should be able to correlate. Okay. So with this we shall conclude a topic called as preamble.